I mean, much like yesterday's game, a flag on the play, delay a game, Larry Krueger. We walked off the yardage, but here we are, going to get ahead of the chains before this morning is over. Good morning, Larry. Better late than never. How are you, man?
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I'm better than the 49ers were yesterday. How about that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Boy, we got a lot to get into here. Panic time, it's the wrong time to panic, but we start as always, Larry, with just the facts. And the fact of the matter is there are two key injuries on the 49ers for the first time this year. Pardon me. Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. Neither of them finished the game. I guess the good news on the injury front is it looked like Trent Williams might have gotten hurt in that game. He put the fear of God into anyone, into everybody, but he did finish the game. But McCaffrey and Deebo, hard to win without him, apparently.
Well, I mean, there was just a lot of adversity yesterday. There's no question about it. And it was just one of the reasons they didn't win the game is they didn't have, those guys. The thing about it is a lot of people would argue, Damon, they're redundant. But at the end of the day, I may even agree with that, but you got to have one of them, right? And you didn't have either of them, and you're on the road against the number one defense. That was just, that was one of the reasons that they lost yesterday. I watched the game film again last night after late at night, and I thought overall it was, they did a lot of good things in the game, but the Browns, I think, did an incredible job at defending the Niner run game after that first drive, and that really was what held the day. After that, the 49ers, so much about football is run the ball, stop the run. The Browns did a better job of running the ball and stopping the run against the 49ers yesterday, and ultimately that's why they won.
They removed the winning formula from Kyle Shanahan. Stay ahead of the chains, get ahead on that scoreboard, control the clock with the ground game. The Niners basically entire afternoon came down to two drives, the opening drive of the game and the final drive of the game. That's where most of the offense was generated the entire afternoon. Just the facts, Larry. 215 total yards, their fewest in a game under Kyle Shanahan. The fifth time that they've been held under 250 yards since Shanahan arrived. 215, though, yesterday. And the Niners are 0-5 in those games. So, you got to do something offensively to have a shot in this league, especially against a defense like that on a day that was built to slow you down with the weather, with some officiating calls, which we're not going to make the focus of this show blown calls, because the Niners are a team that is built to control their own destiny this year. They did not control their own destiny in that game. We got some decisions to talk about, but Larry, it was a terrible offensive afternoon for an offense that hadn't even approached the concept of an even off offensive afternoon at any game that we've seen this year. Like, they were that bad, and a combination of Cleveland being that good was just something they did not overcome.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Kyle Shanahan struggles against this defensive coordinator. Jim Schwartz is
there's something about Coach Ownage, man. There really is.
9-1. 9-1 is what Schwartz is against Shanahan. So, and there were several issues with the offense. One, Purdy was not great. In the first half, he bounced the ball to Ray McCloud. He overthrew CMC, struggled with two wet ball plays. One was a poor throw to Kittle that was off target. The other fell off of his hand mid-throw. And then you go to the second half, Purdy also had three poor passes. He had the tip ball by JOK. He had the ball that was behind Ayuk that was intercepted by Emerson. And then he had a ball that was very late in the game that was almost picked by Newsome. So Purdy struggled, but not nearly as much as people are going to rake him today for. Ayuk and Deebo combined for 4 drops. That was a huge part of this. And then go to George Kittle. He was a total non-factor in the passing game. Then you mix in injuries to CMC and Deebo and Trent. That was clearly felt. I kind of felt like Kyle Shanahan, it's 2020 hindsight, but he probably should have run more plays. They were going up against the number one passing D, and the Browns are good against the run, but they're great against the pass. And to me, they should have run it a little bit more. And I think they should have used Mason a little bit more. I mean, Mason is a big power back. I think they should have used him more, especially once McCaffrey went down. And then you mix in the two angles that nobody will talk about today. It felt like the Niners suffered a little emotional letdown after their victory over Dallas. And then the Browns had what the Bengals are going to have in a few weeks, which is a major rest advantage. They looked fresher, and they looked like the better prepared team.
Well, not on that first drive, though. I mean,
No,
Kyle comes out and he dials up 6 right away again. I mean, to me, Larry, there were a lot of moments that could have been winning moments in this game for the 49ers. And as bad as they were, as tilted as the officiating felt, certainly in the scope of just 2 plays that I know that we're going to talk about today a little bit later on, it was a day where everything that mostly could go wrong went wrong for the 49ers on the road in bad weather against the best defense in football. And they're still lining up for a game-winning kick. Like, as bad as everything was, they still had a chance to win that game. Moody, obviously, 2 crucial misses. It's easy to focus on the final miss, the last kick of the game, as this is where the 49ers lost. But there's all sorts of little moments in that game where the 49ers could really could have taken control. And they didn't do it, Larry. To me, the single biggest play of this game, the single biggest failure of this game for the 49ers was not getting off the field on 4th down. It is 4th and 4 with about 6:52 left to play in the game. And you even got a cutaway shot of Steve Wilks saying, damn it, because he knew that was a big one. That was the biggest play of the game, and the Niners defense didn't get off the field.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Niner defense, struggled without Dre Greenlaw. There's no question. Greenlaw has played at a really, really high level this year. They didn't have him. I thought their tackling against really 2 or 3 different players was really sloppy. They didn't corral Ford. They didn't corral Hunt. They didn't corral the tight end Joku, ex-Niner Marquise Goodwin. The tackling was shoddy. It really was. That I thought that was a major part of this as well. They didn't tackle that well. The Niner D line on paper should have absolutely dominated the Browns O line on paper, and it just didn't happen. So the Browns were without their Pro Bowl guard Joel Bitonio. The center was dinged up. Neither tackle was playing all that great, and yet the 49ers only got 2 hits on the quarterback all day. Only 2 sacks of the quarterback all day.
I mean, it was a day that left a lot of fans scratching their head going, what the hell did I just watch? And it doesn't make sense based on everything I had watched coming into this game from the 49ers to this point. So a disappointing afternoon for sure. Finger pointing is the name of the game on a Monday after the loss. And you and I, I'm sure, got some fingers to point at a few moments, a few plays as to what happened. But, as cliche as it is, Larry, it's on to Minnesota. I mean, the goal of this year was not to beat the Cleveland Browns in week 6. The goal of this year is to be a Super Bowl champion. That goal has not been deterred. They haven't even been bounced out of the 1 seed because guess who else lost on the road to a backup quarterback yesterday? The Philadelphia Eagles. So at least the league continued to break around the Niners in a way that was beneficial to them. There's been a lot of that so far. But, a team that is good enough to control its own destiny lost control of a football game. They never really, it looked like they had it early on, but I thought another devastating moment. It didn't feel devastating in real time. It was bad in real time, but it didn't feel like, man, that's going to be a real difference this afternoon. Was right after the Fred Warner interception, they're starting a drive on the Cleveland 26-yard line. Larry, they came away with 0 points from the Cleveland 26. And had it gone 10-0 or 14-0, I think the entire game just feels much differently. And the sadness factory starts to produce, that here we go again, that every single Cleveland Browns fan and player and coach knows all too well If they're down at home 14-0, I just think the entire game plays out much differently.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. To me, it was just a combination of factors where you had, um, you lost some of your key weapons. You're going up against the number one defense on the road. They are way more rested than you. You're in an emotional letdown window. You weren't particularly sharp, against them in any phase, really. Your quarterback wasn't sharp. You didn't tackle well. Then you mix in 2 missed kicks. That hurt. Don't forget about the horrendous game altering penalties. It's not excuses. It's what happened. So hey, they just kind of ran out of options. I mean, and all this, and they wound up losing by a couple points. So, the Browns. Some people think the Browns are a Super Bowl team. Some people think the Browns are really special. I don't, but they did enough to win the game.
Maybe the fully intact Cleveland Browns might have been that. Maybe their cream would have risen to the top of the AFC somehow, some way. The Buffalo Bills last night kind of looked like false prophets. The Jets, obviously, big win yesterday, but they're not going to ever realize their potential with their quarterbacking situation. Deshaun Watson not being able to go, Nick Chubb being hurt, absolutely threw the Cleveland Browns off of their access a little bit. But that's a very good defense, and that defense beat the 49ers up front. Was not a good day for the 49ers offensive line. They did not take advantage of a depleted Cleveland defensive line. I will say, Randy Gregory, welcome to the team. He looked pretty good. I thought Randy Gregory had a good afternoon, but the afternoon got spoiled, obviously, with a missed, what felt like such a makeable field goal, too. And what stinks, I want to count the people in this picture. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Jake Moody's entire family was at that game. His entire family. He had 10 people in a picture of him standing there in Cleveland, in the dog pound, and he's got his entire family there, and he doesn't just miss one, he misses 2 kicks, and the second kick, I could never kick a 41-yard field goal, but I'm not in the NFL. 41-yard field goals are makeable field goals by any standard in this league. I don't care about the terrain, the weather, indoors, outdoors. 41 is a makeable field goal for every professional kicker in the NFL, and he missed a makeable field goal. But I thought that was actually partly responsible from Kyle Shanahan. And we've done an awful lot of praising of a football team that is very good. And yesterday's loss doesn't change the fact that they're a very good football team. Kyle Shanahan had a shit day yesterday, Larry. There's no other way to say it. He was not good. He played afraid at the end of that game. And his biggest mistake of the day, on a day where his offense just totally got humbled everywhere. Well, it's 3rd and 7 at the Cleveland 23. And here comes Kyle trotting out his rookie kicker for a 41-yard field goal. Why didn't he run another play?
I know. There was 9 seconds on the clock.
And a timeout. He had 9 seconds and a timeout. And before anyone puts on the table, well, what you want there is to run the kick on 3rd down. And if anything goes wrong with the snap or the hold, you get 4th down to try it again. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you walk up to any kicker and you say, would you rather have 2 shots because of the concept of something that is basically borderline automatic and not to be worried about at this level of football? The problem with a missed field goal rarely is it the snap or the hold. So would you rather have 2 chances at something that's borderline automatic, or would you just be closer? Every kicker in the world is going to choose closer. The difference between a 39-yard field goal and a 41-yard field goal is the difference in the 6 feet that ball hooked right. And that's probably the difference in the game. I couldn't believe that Kyle didn't try to slam Jordan Mason just into the back of that offensive line to pick up a couple of more yards, or sneak it with Brock Purdy. A couple of weeks ago, you and I were debating the merits of the brotherly shove, the tush push. I mean, if the 49ers had that, they should have used that right there to get a little bit closer for their rookie kicker who had already had a miss on the afternoon.
Right. I mean, I don't understand, I mean, I don't know what he was thinking there, but come on, you had to run one more play. I would have put it in Purdy's hands and let him just drop back to pass and find somebody or throw it away. But take a shot to make more yards. I was kind of hoping for the touchdown there, to be honest, when that drive started, because I figured, well, or get real close for the easy field goal. Instead, I'm like, well, it looked like, okay, they get to whatever it was, the 20-something yard line, but then it's a 41-yard field goal. And when he lined up for it, I was like, oh, no, this looks far. Now, here's the question. How many chances do you give Jake Moody with Robbie Gould sitting next to his phone at home? Well, you're in your Super Bowl window, and you've got a kicker that's never missed in the playoffs, and you made a financial move to go to the rookie kicker. Okay, now the rookie kicker is showing that he, has a big leg, but that he's a rookie, and that it's not going to be a slam dunk. And he's been really good until yesterday. But realistically, how many kicks does he get to miss before you say, you know what, this is a problem? I mean, how many? I'd love to know. Is it one more? Is it two more? Is it three more? Is it four? What's the number? There has to be a number. And since it's not like you got to decide, well, do we cut Jake? No, you could put him on. You could make sure that you could say he's hurt. There's like 9 different lists you could put him on. Put him on the IR.
What are you trying to get fired as the GM of the New York Mets, Larry? You're going to use a fake IL for. Here's the thing.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, if you want, you don't have to cut him. You could just put him on the injured reserve and bring in Robbie Gould. I mean, you're in your Super Bowl window. How many games are you willing to lose because of your rookie kicker? How many?
Well, you have all this cap space, so fitting in Robbie Gould now feels easier than ever. And it's not you got to worry about Robbie next year. This is a 1-year deal, and you might lose Jake Moody as a player, just mentally. Kickers are mental head cases, and if you just say, hey, rookie kicker, you missed your first 10 in a row, but after your first 2 misses, we're going to go back to the guy we drafted you to replace, I think you lose the kid. So, but I'll tell you what, if all the Niners need to do is sacrifice the career of Jake Moody to get a Super Bowl, you do it. You know what I mean? You do it. Kyle cannot be in a situation where this team falls short because of a missed big kick in the postseason. And if that does happen, if that were to happen, with Robbie Gould available and that choice being made, it would be bad. I don't know there's no other way to say it. It would be devastating. It would be bad. So do you think, forget the supposing and the maybe, do you think that they're going to call Robbie Gould this week?
I do. I think they are going to call Robbie Gould.
Just have a chat.
Well, Robbie, how you doing? How you feeling? What are you doing?
Healthy, Robbie? How's your
hand healthy? You've been kicking. You're interested in kicking. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying they ought to go to Robbie right now, but right now they have an option. If Robbie Gould gets signed in a week, they don't have an option. And they got to make a determination. Do they think this is going to work or not with this rookie kicker? There's rookie kickers that don't work out. I mean, it's not, they drafted this guy in the 3rd round. They don't have to give up on him forever. But they've got to decide what they can live with and what they can't. Can they live with them falling short of the Super Bowl because of a rookie kicker and his nerves? Can you? I don't I don't know that you can. I mean, you're gonna put everything you got. I mean, fish and chips is like, stop blaming Moody. He missed 2 field goals, including a 41-yard field goal. That's a gimme. Sorry, fish and chips. You get the blame. When you fail, you get the blame. That's the way this thing goes. In the big leagues, big leagues, you get blamed when you fail.
Yeah,
that's the way it goes.
I also thought it was a failure on Kyle. It feels like Kyle's not aware of the concept of a closer kick from my rookie is an easier kick by definition. I mean,
how close do you got to be? 41-yarders in the NFL in today's kicking deal, a 41-yard field goal's a gimme.
Right, 6 yards further back than a point after, for goodness sakes. That's it. Right. So it
just pushed it. He hooked the first one. He pushed the second one. But, I mean, forget these kicks. It's about the kicks coming up in January. It's about those kicks. The Niners are going to qualify for the playoffs. He's not going to keep them from the playoffs. But my question is, how many kicks do you need to see him miss before you go to the guy that's never missed in the playoffs? It's more of a question than anything else. But I definitely would be checking in with Robbie, and I definitely would be having those conversations. Guys, how many kicks can we miss with our rookie kicker before we're going to make a move? How many? What do you think?
You know what Jake Moody needs? He needs an acai bowl, because they are filled with all sorts of nutrition and vitamins and deliciousness. Welcome to 49ers Wake Up. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger with you. We're brought to you by Palmetto Superfoods and the acai bowl. And here is the deal. Buy one, get one free. Go in, look for a small acai bowl. You get a second one free when you say Damon and Larry sent me. Go ahead and check it out. You got the code? You got the promo, Larry, to put that up?
Yes, I do.
There it is.
Let me grab one thing off the table. Hold on. Give me 30 seconds.
Okay. Larry's getting one thing off the table. DBLK15 was the promo code to get you 15% off, but we've kicked that up a notch now. You can get a buy one, get one free small acai bowl at Palmetto Superfoods. The reason why Larry was late this morning is because he was eating his acai bowl, I'm guessing. But it's absolutely delicious. It is fantastic. The truth is, 49er football in acai bowls are strange bedfellows, right? What are you guys? You like, Larry is selling barbecue on his channel. Damon, you're doing Ike sandwiches and whiskey in the past. Like, what are you doing? We're bringing you something healthy. We're bringing you something good that absolutely lines up with having a delicious morning, a tasty yet healthy dessert. Check out an acai bowl. Do it at Palmetto Superfoods. You will be very, very happy that you did just that. There he is. Larry's back, everybody. Would you have to run in and get a coffee? Oh, no, wait. Let me put his ears in. There you go.
Yes. I poured myself a cup of coffee.
Got to get that coffee in.
I didn't get it.
Well, I'll tell you, the spot that you just missed me doing, some of my best work ever. I'm sorry that you missed it, Larry. I really am. Put the big 49er Wake Up banner back around us again. It is wonderful to have you here. Thank you for making this your choice. Niner fans are waking up all over the world and tuning into this show now, day after. And we're going to be doing 49ers Wake Up on a Tuesday next week, Larry, because it's on to Minnesota. And then you'll actually be able to say, we're on to Cincinnati. And you really mean it, because it's going to be the Bengals next and then a bye week. But as we started this show with just the facts, how worried are we about a Debo or a McCaffrey injury? Based on what I've seen and heard so far, I'm not that worried. But you see how fragile this league is and how delicately everything hangs in the balance. I mean, without player health, you're a different football team. And without Christian McCaffrey, this is a radically different football team.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great player. You're fortified though. I mean, you have a back in JP Mason that you can lean on him, but yeah, I mean, he's got an oblique. Debo's got a shoulder. it doesn't sound like either injury is season threatening in any way. It's just they're not going to have these guys. They may not have these guys from Minnesota. So,
Well, and what we got are two players with injury histories about them. It feels like when something starts to go wrong, that first injury makes the second injury a little bit easier to happen. And maybe that's just some injury anxiety on my part. But two guys with injury histories are both injured right now, and that's not good. And honestly, Deebo Samuel it's really weird. Larry, he's a combination of an absolute beast, unstoppable force, and kind of really overrated all at the same time. Like, I don't know, man. Like, Deebo's good.
I don't think he's overrated at all. I think he's a tone-setting player for them.
Well, when he didn't set a tone yesterday, he didn't do anything yesterday.
Well, he was hurt.
Before he got hurt, he didn't do anything.
Well, you're right. He had a drop on an early play, but I mean, he is a difference-making play. I don't blame injury. I don't blame the players for the injuries they suffer. He's incredibly important, and they didn't have him. And he does. Anytime, Damon, your job is to run. Some guys run around, other guys run through. The Niners have a bunch of guys who run through you. Kittle runs through you. Deebo runs through you. McCaffrey can do both. But they've got guys who run through you. Guys who run through you don't last that long. Guys who run through you get hurt. And that's why if there's, John Lynch, here we are. It's the 16th of October. The trade deadline comes up on the 31st. There's a bunch of guys rumored to be available. One of the positions that I think they ought to look at is one more weapon, as somebody who runs around, somebody who's got speed and creates space. I would look for that. And there's we discussed it on the post-game show last night. There's any number of guys that are available, that are at least rumored to be available. And I would definitely go down that road and see who's out there and who you could acquire. I mean, you're in your Super Bowl window. There's a lot of talk the Jets want to move McCole Hardman. He's a burner. A lot of talk that Arizona's going to move off Rondale Moore. He's a burner. There's talk at least that Devontae Adams is available. I don't know that that's worth it. There's also talk that James Conner and Josh Jacobs are available. I don't know that you need them, but Lynch has got a couple weeks here. The Niners are armed with $41 million and all of their draft picks. They're firmly inside their Super Bowl window. They haven't gotten it done. They're desperate to get it done. And I think that there's a chance that they make a significant move and a significant addition. I do think Deebo will get healthy. I do think CMC will get healthy. But they're going to have to lean on some other guys for the next few weeks probably to help them get healthy. And I would lean on J.P. Mason. And I know he fumbled a little bit in training camp, but I would still lean on him. He's big. He's powerful. I mean, he averaged over 5 yards a carry. He only got 5 carries. He had a big touchdown run the week before against Dallas. Utilize this kid.
I agree with you. Deebo is a tone setter, and I'm not trying to diminish how good of a player that he is, but there are stretches of him disappearing in games he's uninjured. There are stretches of George Kittle doing nothing but blocking. And look, I'm not here to diminish the importance of his blocking either, but 5 out in the pattern. We were talking about that the other day, and it felt like you had to keep Kittle in a lot yesterday just for the heat that was coming from that Browns defensive line. But those two guys, whether it be yesterday or other games that the Niners win, and so, you're talking about it and nothing went wrong. You won the game, and so you don't bring. But there's a lot of games where Kittle is nowhere to be found, where Deebo is like nowhere to be found. It's not because either guy got hurt. Puka Nacua is 8 catches, 100 yards almost every single time you look up, and that guy's a rookie. No one even heard of him before week 1. I need a guy who's going to be there every day. And Brandon Ayuk has been that guy, other than the game that he missed, has been that everyday guy, but he had a bad game yesterday. He had some drops that I'm sure would love to have back. And so it was a day of offensive failure, I think, from everyone. that the targets did a bad job, that the line did a bad job. Brock Purdy is not cloaked in glory, and we don't need to pretend that he had a better game than he really did. He was behind everyone all day, Larry.
No, he was not. I watched the game again last night. He had 3 bad passes in the first half. He had 3 bad passes in the second half. I mean, that's what he had. I mean, the rest of the day he was good. I mean, I went through that thing with a fine-tooth comb. The first half, he bounced the ball to McLeod, but that whole pattern was screwed up. McLeod bumped into Trent Williams on that play. So that was one.
That's a play.
And I don't know. I'm not even 100 right, and I'm not even 100% sure that he didn't throw that into the turf on purpose at that point. But he bounced it, so that's one for sure. Bad throw. He had another throw where he overthrew CMC by a couple yards. It happens. You got him hit that if you can, but he didn't hit that. And then when the rain came late second quarter, he struggled with that one poor throw to Kittle it was supposed to be over Kittle's right shoulder, and instead it came out of his hand with a wet ball. It fluttered. It was probably his ugliest throw of the day, and it landed near the sideline over Kittle's left shoulder. That was a poorly thrown ball. And then he had the ball that popped out of his hand mid-throw. So those were his mistakes in the first half. In the second half, he also had 3 poor passes. He had that one pass where he tried to layer it over the linebacker, and JOK, who's a terrific linebacker, had a great day, tipped the ball and almost intercepted it. That was early in the second half. Then he had the ball that was to Ayuk, and it was behind Ayuk by 3-4 feet, and it was intercepted by Emerson. That was obviously a bad ball. And then besides that, his only other really bad ball was the one where he was late on the ball to late in the game. He threw on that last drive. He threw a ball that was almost intercepted by Newsome. That was also 2 or 3 feet behind the receiver. But Ayuk and Debo combined for 4 drops, and for Ayuk, 3 of them were on him. He had a bad day. I mean, on a day where where Kittle didn't do much, and Debo was hurt, and CMC was hurt, Ayuk needed to step up as the number 1 guy, and he was AWOL. He made a few plays in the second half, but 3 key drops for Brandon Ayuk. So, I mean, Brock wasn't good, but his receivers weren't good either. The line, this is a great defense. I mean, there was a 4 or 5 plays in the second half where he was running for his life. So it just, it was a series of things that all added up, and it added up to a 2-point loss against a pretty good Browns team on the road. It's just the way it goes in the NFL. I would say if you got 17 games in the season, you're going to have maybe if you're really, really good, maybe 10 games that you're at your optimal peak level. And then there's going to be a few games that you weren't. And this one, after last week's big national TV win over Dallas, this was going to be a game where they were a little flat. I really thought, though, Damon, when the two teams brawled in the preseason, that was a major advantage Niners from the standpoint of, hey, you know what? There was a chance they were going to sleepwalk through this one, and after that brawl, there was no chance of that. But really credit Schwartz, credit the Browns, Dalvin Tomlinson, JOK, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. I mean, they got a lot of big-time players on their defense, and they showed up. And then P.J. Walker made just enough plays. Amari Cooper made a couple amazing plays. I thought Kareem Hunt was really good in this game. Jerome Ford had that 122-yard run late. The Browns did just enough offensively to get this thing done. But it was a team loss. It truly was. A few weeks ago when they won, they had the game against the Cardinals. Everybody got involved, and it was a true team win. This was a true team loss.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I look, I'm not going to defend Purdy. I thought his afternoon, you can talk about.
He wasn't good.
He wasn't good. He wasn't. I mean,
no.
We've seen Brock Purdy.
But he wasn't horrendous. If you go watch the film, you'll see he wasn't. It wasn't like. I mean, you got to remember, Jalen Hurts yesterday threw 3 picks. I mean, I've seen quarterbacks. We've seen Mahomes, as great as he is, just absolutely be the reason his team lost. if you go back through that thing with a fine-tooth comb, Brock Purdy was among the reasons they lost. He wasn't the reason they lost.
I thought Kyle Shanahan, certainly among the reasons why the 49ers lost yesterday. I didn't like not running an extra play to get Moody closer at the very end. I hated his sequence of pass. Greg Olson even called it out. Like, here it is. You just took the lead. You got the ball back. And now it's like bleed some clock and don't give Cleveland a decent shot to come down here and kick or, get the go-ahead score. And Kyle just threw the ball 3 times on a day his quarterback and his wide receivers had nothing. I know,
but Damon, you're talking about their 11th series, the second to last series, 3:21 left. Cleveland Niners down 17-16. And I agree with you. And when the announcer said it, you'd almost guaranteed that people were gonna re-utter that today. But if you go back and look at that series, the 1st and 10 play was the mistake. They should have run on 1st and 10.
Get the clock moving. Get the clock moving.
Exactly. And Cleveland had 2 timeouts, forced them to use them. But what happened was the worst thing happened. 1st and 10 from the 25. Purdy's under heavy rush. He throws it away, and he gets the grounding penalty.
Yep.
And so then you're looking, after that point, you had to pass. You're 2nd and 21. You're going to run on 2nd and 21. He went to Ayuk on an out pattern for 10. Then it was 3rd and 11, and he had to throw it away under rush. And they wound up punting, so it wound up being 3 passes. But the first play got you so far behind on the chains. If you could have just given up on the series and ran on 2nd down, maybe you should have at that point because you punted anyway. But once you passed and had a penalty on 1st down and got to 2nd and 21, if you're really trying to convert, you got to pass. And they were trying to convert.
I thought where Cleveland was at its best yesterday was just sniffing out that screen game. And there was a lot of screen game in the game plan. You saw it. And when Cleveland started jumping over it, it's like they didn't go away from it or something. It's the reason why this team had 1 passing yard in between the first drive of the game, and we didn't see another passing yard, I think, until the 3rd quarter at that particular time. Like, you had Christian McCaffrey on 1st and 10 getting buried for 8-yard losses because Myles Garrett and company were just sniffing out screens. And maybe that's just Schwartz being all over Kyle's tendencies, which he's got some serious ownage on Kyle now. It'd be hard to argue that he's not inside that guy's playbook and inside his head. And the Browns were just really good yesterday. The 49ers were really bad yesterday. And I'm proud of us. We've gone about 40 minutes into the show here, Larry, without complaining about officials, because that's a very easy thing to do. Let's just say this. And I want to get this out there to combat what I know is about to happen in the chat and in other places. We are not blaming the referees for this loss. Do you understand that? Can I put that on the table any clearer? The referees are not responsible for the 49ers losing this game. However, they are responsible for 2 game-altering plays that had either gone the 49ers' way, they probably win the game. The Gibson unnecessary roughness hit is as ridiculous a pussified, scared officiating league can show you how bad that they've become at officiating this grown man's game. There was nothing about that hit that was dirty. There was nothing about that hit that could have been changed based on the physics of the earth and gravity. There is nothing about that hit that was helmet to helmet. There was nothing that was, here's the thing, describe.
There's one word to describe it. Textbook.
Clean. Yeah, it was clean. It was clean.
So it's a textbook hit. And it's a textbook hit. I mean, it's
Larry, here's the thing. If he had wanted to put the lumber on him, Gibson 100% pulled up in that moment. He didn't go through the player. He didn't go through the body and just dismantle someone. He pulled up a little and still didn't even get the benefit of the doubt. And then the other officiating moment that absolutely altered the game because it probably prevented a scoop and score by Nick Bosa was the PJ Walker, was his hand coming forward. I thought it was a fumble pass. I thought it was a quick whistle by a crew that didn't even march off yardage correctly at one point in this game, didn't even call penalty. Like, it was a shit day for that crew yesterday. They were bad. And the Browns had reason in a win to be unimpressed by that officiating. And the 49ers have, more reason in a loss to be upset. Here it is. Excellent, Larry. I'm glad you dialed it up. Look at you producing like Fred Godelli. Here we go.
Yeah, let me just make sure we get the volume down on this. We don't need the volume. We'll just go with the video. Here's the route. Here's the hit by Gibson. It's perfect.
Watch this. Again, what do you want him to do? The player was in midair. Is Gibson supposed to wait for both of his feet to come back down to the ground before he plays football? I don't get where is the infraction? Where is it? There's no helmet to helmet. That's shoulder pad to shoulder. I don't see it. I don't get it.
Well, it's because the NFL on this play is officiating contact, and it's not reviewable. I mean, who came up with the idea that you're going to have review in a sport and then take the bang, bang, fastest, hardest to officiate play and say it's not reviewable?
Not reviewable.
You can review everything.
Look,
you can't review. I mean, we're in a world where we have review. So any play that's unreviewable is means that you're dangling. That means that, some part-time school teacher who's out there in Cleveland on a rainy day has to get this right in real time. And if he doesn't get it right in real time, everybody's just going to look really, really bad. Why can't this be reviewable? And this is textbook. If he goes low on his knees and the guy, flips over and lands on his head, that's a penalty. If he goes helmet to helmet, that's a penalty. I mean, we're asking these guys to be, Olympic gymnasts. They're football players, for crying out loud, on wet fields. And that was as textbook as it gets. This is a textbook hit. Little slant, you hit the inside shoulder, you rocked him, he went down. And here comes the flag. It's like, I don't understand why throw the flag there if it's not reviewable. I mean, you could always take a look at it afterwards and say, oh, that was too violent. But I mean, once you make this call, you can't undo this call. So I mean, this is one of the worst calls we've seen all year.
In a violent game, that is not even a violent hit. But Christian McCaffrey gets hit twice as hard as that every single time he touches the ball. Somebody on the chat says, well, you have the concept of defenseless receiver going on here. This is a defenseless receiver. Then the NFL needs to outlaw jumping. No receiver can have both feet off the ground at any time. I mean, seriously. Defenseless, the only reason why he's defenseless is because he leapt into the air. There, he shouldn't have jumped. How dare you jump and create a defenseless situation? It's just, that's such a ticky-tack foul.
Well, once again, that's favoring the offense too much. Okay? I understand why they want to favor the offense over the defense, but you have to allow the defense to play the game. So you're saying that he should have stayed back, let the ball either fall, be completed or be incompleted, and then he could tackle the guy. I mean, that's a different sport than the one we grew up with. And that right there is textbook hit. Textbook.
It was
Hits
bad.
him right on the shoulder pads. And this is on 3rd and 10, and this would have been 4th and 10. Instead, it's an automatic first down and a 15-yard penalty tacked on.
All right. I don't want to see it anymore. That's enough. That to me is a ridiculous decision by an officiating crew, which showed you that they were just in no state-of-the-art decision-making mode at any point in time. They couldn't even call face mask in the right direction or march off yardage in the right direction a couple of different times in this game as well. So
how about the Mooney Ward hold?
Yeah.
I mean, that was not a hold. I mean, there was no hold there at all. He didn't clutch his jersey. He didn't grab him. That was a phantom call, both on the same drive. So those two penalties really hurt. And then, another one, if we're just going to let quarterbacks, as they're going to the ground, flick the ball with their wrist, in nothing about that throw is a throw.
Right.
Then it should be the advantage to the defense. Whatever gives the defense more of an advantage should be the call. So if it's more of an advantage to have it be an incompletion and a penalty, a grounding penalty, the defense should get that. If the play continues and it's a turnover and that's the bigger advantage for the defense, then that should be the rule. But just allowing quarterbacks to, he was basically in the grasp. He flipped around, didn't know the defender was there. Oliver hits him, and he just kind of pushes it off the side of his hand a foot and a half. It's a clear fumble. To have that be an incomplete pass, and we're sitting there going, well, did his fingers go forward? You got to be kidding. There's nothing about that that's a pass. Nothing.
Well, and you just had, again, an officiating crew instantly say, no doubt about it. Clear as day, nothing to even discuss.
Well, it was challenged. It was challenged.
No, I know, but here's the thing. You got to let the play happen. You officiate it as a fumble. You officiate it as the scoop and score. And then you at least have the opportunity to go back and take a look at it. I mean, here's the thing. It's the old. They
did take a look at it, and they confirmed.
Right, but
it's a bad rule, Damon. What I'm saying is, the defense. It's a absolute bogus favor to the offense. Where if basically every sack that anybody commits going forward, if you see the guy coming, you can just flick it off the side of your wrist. Anything going forward at all, and that negates the sack and whatever's coming from it, usually a fumble. So
no, I misspoke there a little bit. The problem with that is it was so close in the eyes of review. Had that been ruled fumble, scoop, score, touchdown, they wouldn't have been able to overturn that, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. So had the official not determined that with my own eyes I can officiate this moment so perfectly that it's got to be a fumble, the Niners would have had 7 more points.
There's a solution here. Have you ever been to the racetrack?
Sure.
Okay. When there's a photo finish, they don't say the one horse won unless overwhelming video, evidence says otherwise. They simply flash inquiry. It goes to the stewards, and they make the right call. Inquiry. That's all they got to do in these situations that are so damn fast that they don't know what happened. Inquiry. And it goes to the booth. That's it. You don't have to predispose one outcome over another. You don't have to have overwhelming video evidence that negates the bad call on the field. Because let's remember, the call that's made on the field will be favored because you need overwhelming video evidence to overturn the call on the field. Why should an incorrect view or an incorrect call be advantaged over the correct call?
Right.
Just throw up the inquiry like they do at the track. Go to the stewards, in this case, go to the video judge above. We don't know what that was. Inquiry. Now here it is. Then neither outcome is favored, and then you're more apt to get a fair result.
Right. Don't leave yourself with the wiggle room to default back to the wrong decision in the first place.
Right. And you know where it really comes into play? On fumbles in games that aren't the Super Bowl, when there's limited camera angles and the ball's in the scrum, and we think it was a fumble, but we can't, it was ruled non-fumble on the field, and we can't get quite the angle that quite shows it. That's where you just go inquiry, booth review, make the best call based on the video evidence that you have, not tied to the call on the field. Who cares? Who really cares about the call on the field by a part-time official? And then here's the other thing. It's a the NFL's always caught in these days between their mom and pop roots and what they are today, which is the fastest growing industry in America that's worth $20 billion. It's no longer quaint to say, hey, a guy was stocking shelves at Kroger's on Wednesday, and on Sunday he played in the NFL. No, they don't do that anymore. They got a 16-man practice squad. Okay, and this whole idea of, Bob taught school on Friday and had a social studies test, and on Sunday he's officiating the Super Bowl.
Right.
That sounds like, oh, isn't that quaint? No, it's not good. It's like, there's enough money on the line. There's enough gambling money on the line. There's enough jobs and careers and everything. There's enough importance in these games. You can't just be like, well, it's just a game. No, it's not just a game. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, right, and careers are on the line, and get it freaking right. And part-time officials is a thing of the past and should be wiped away for full-time officials, because how do you become better at your job? It's when you stop doing it part-time and start doing it full-time.
The NFL is literally a pillar that the entire country stands and leans on. From entertainment to business to free time to family bonding to having an opportunity to hang out with your kid on a weekend. Like, it is, football is, and this is probably not something that we should be proud of, but football is like one of the 10 most important subjects in the United States. Okay, so get it right. Get it right. Yeah, you're right. No more mom and pop. This guy he's a truant officer, and he gets kids to high school, and then here he is making sure everybody's getting to the line of scrimmage on time. It's amazing how life balances itself out. No, it's not. It's not. Pay every single official. How about this? If every official on a field was making six figures, mid six figures, you would get better people doing it. The higher paying the position, the better the applicant for the job becomes.
Yeah.
So there you go. Get that done. Let me say this, though, since we just did 20 minutes on everything that's wrong with football, the broadcast and whatnot. Larry, Greg Olson is the premier color analyst in football today. He's outstanding. He is really good. That crew, Burkhardt is really good, but
Burkhardt's good, yep.
Olson is A+. He is as good as any booth analyst I've ever heard. He is all over plays and players and actions and details. He's a smart guy. He's interesting. He presents well. He sounds great. He explains himself without any distraction. Just fantastic stuff from Greg Olson. He might have had the best game in Cleveland yesterday.
He's good. They're a good combo. Burkhardt's really good on baseball and football. Olson's really strong as well. Yeah, no, they do a nice job. They absolutely do.
So, welcome to, let's call hour number 2 here on 49ers Wake Up, brought to you by Palmetto Superfood and the Acai Bowl that is sweeping the entire Bay Area. Get yourself a buy one, get one free Acai Bowl by using promo code DBLK15 still, or just go in there and say, Damon and Larry sent me. I was told that I get one of these free if I buy, if you buy a small, you get a small for free. There you go. Forget about the 15% off. We're not trying to save you like 90 cents or whatever it is. This is a buy one, get one free. And trust me, when you try one acai bowl, you'll be back for another one. Have Larry and I ever steered you wrong? Whether it be a sandwich, some barbecue, something to drink, something to eat, something to snack on, we've never steered you wrong. Not once, and we're not doing it now. You got to try it. One bite, you'll be a believer. It's absolutely delicious. It's good for you all at the same time. Try out an acai bowl from Palmetto Superfoods. It's great to have them along as a sponsor. And Larry, I think you and I might be cooking up an appearance at a Palmetto Superfood sometime here in the near future, where we're going to invite everyone out. We'll use social media to let everyone know where we are, when we're going to be there, and hopefully get a nice little crowd of like-minded football fans together to enjoy a little afternoon or something.
Yeah, these are absolutely delicious. It's great for you, but it's really, really good. And it's funny. I've been doing all these different streams the last few weeks, and just out of nowhere, it'll just be like, "Hey, Krug, I tried an acai bowl," and I'm like, "Good." So do it. It's one of those things. There's very few things in life, if you try it once, you'll be a fan. But this is one of those. If you try an acai bowl, you're going back for more because it's so damn delicious and absolutely phenomenal. And you know what? The base model is really, really good, and I would start there. But then after that, it's customizable. So my wife can't wait for their location to open in downtown Walnut Creek, and it really is one of those things where you have one of these, and this will start being part of your ritual. That you maybe it's a morning ritual, maybe it's a dinner ritual, but this is going to be part of your regular dietary plan once you try one. They are absolutely phenomenal for you, but also phenomenal tasting. To me, that's where it really starts. You could say, "Oh, eat it; it's good for you." No. Eat it; it's great.
It's tasty.
You're gonna love it. You're absolutely gonna love it.
Where's our tasty little banner that goes around us?
There we go.
There we are. So welcome to 49ers Wake Up. First time dealing with defeat all football season for the 49ers. It is a lick your wounds, find out the severity of McCaffrey and Debo injuries, and get ready to take on the Minnesota Vikings, who edged out the Chicago Bears yesterday on the day the Bears played poorly again. Justin Fields even had a dislocated thumb, so everything that could be going wrong is going wrong in Chicago. And this Vikings team, again, I'm glad that they won the game, Larry. It helps the 49ers, I think, refocus the same way that Arizona's win over Dallas, I think, helped them focus. I didn't think yesterday had anything to do with a lack of focus. The Cleveland Browns were just the better football team. And sometimes you got to tip your cap and say, we got beat. And the Niners did. They got beat. They physically got beat up. And you don't expect that to happen very much to a team that is as well built and as physical as the Niners are. But, this game humbles you quickly. Really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, more than anything, I just think that if you said, give me the reason the Niners lost that game, I mean, there's a bunch. First of all, there were a bunch of great plays in that game as well. I mean, and we can get into those at some point. But I thought, one thing that, to me, it was the most interesting article I read in the entire offseason, and that was, we think of NFL games as who's got the advantage home and road, and who's got the advantage record-wise, and who's got the advantage on the spread. But in reality, there's this internal deal with the rest advantage, and every team doesn't bring the same amount of rest. The Browns had a bunch of days to prepare for the Niners and rest up for this game and play it at home. Niners were coming off of that Dallas emotional victory and had many fewer days to rest. Browns had a bye last week. This is going to happen, by the way, in the Cincinnati game in a couple weeks as well. Niners will be coming off of a Monday nighter, flying home from Minnesota, and the Bengals will have had the week off and have 13 days to prepare. As somebody who's done the quality control job in pro football in the past, I'll tell you right now, if you have an extra day to prepare, you have an advantage. When you have had an extra week and plus to prepare, when you've had 10 plus days of a rest advantage, that is a factor. And I don't say it as an excuse. I just say it as, next time you're wagering on an NFL game, have an idea of how much rest these teams have. And it's not like one of these things where, what comes around goes around. Nope, not the way it works. Some teams are going to have huge rest advantages all year, and there's other teams that have rest advantages not once all year. I mean, think about that for a second. There could be a team that has a rest advantage in like 10 or 12 games, and then there could be a team that doesn't have a rest advantage in any game. That's the way this thing is set up. And I'm not making excuses for the Niners here. I'm just saying it's a reality of NFL football. So the Browns and
something. Here's the thing. I think
Yeah.
it's something that we dismiss more than we should.
Yeah.
It
Oh, I
shouldn't be
mean,
just this dismissible.
we are all about
everybody's got a
Sunday.
bye week, so it all works out in the wash. It
It does not work out in the wash. The Jets, for example, have a rest advantage in like 13 games this year. Okay. The league, you could make an argument, wanted to see Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets in the playoffs and engage that audience. They gave them a rest advantage in 13 games. You can look it up. The Bears have a rest advantage, I believe, in no games all year, not one. So this was a major rest advantage for the Browns. They looked fresher. They looked better prepared. Did they not? So that's one. Two, Niners definitely had a little bit of an emotional letdown after the Dallas victory. That played a huge, huge deal. I thought Shanahan had a horrendous day. This is the number one pass defense in football. This should have been a 60-40 run-pass split. Instead, they actually threw more passes than they had runs in a game that they either led or were within one score the entire day. So, and then he didn't run one or two more plays trying to get closer on the field goal at the end. For what reason? I don't know. So I didn't think Shanahan had a particularly good game. Then you mix in the injury to CMC. Debo was a non-factor. Trent taped it up and went, but he wasn't 100%. And you didn't have the great Dre Greenlaw out there at all. He is a dominant player. And they gave up 4.7 yards per carry. And they were sloppy, bringing down several of the offensive players from the Browns. So these are all factors. Then you mix in the fact that Kittle was a complete non-factor. There wasn't enough touches or runs for J.P. Mason. There was two horrendous crushing penalties that impacted this game. There were two missed field goals from Jake Moody. The Niners were too damn sloppy in this game. They had 12 penalties. Ayuk was a disaster. He had 3 drops, 3 major drops. Debo had another one. So those two guys combined for 4 drops. Purdy was not great. He had 3 bad passes in the first half. He had 3 bad passes in the second half. He threw his first interception. But to me, if you said what stands out as the primary reasons, the Niners tackling against Ford and Hunt and Goodwin and Njoku was poor, and the Browns did an awesome job defending the Niner run game and the Niner screen game. After the first drive where the Niners moved right down the field, the Browns put the clamps on, and they did a phenomenal job at the line of scrimmage stopping the Niner run and stopping the short passing game. So to me, there's a bunch of reasons there, and when you add them all together, it's a ton of adversity. And still, the 49ers were in position to win that game if their kicker makes a 41-yard field goal, which is standard fare by a kicker. I mean, I'd love to see the percentage of field goals made from 41 this year. It's very, very, very high. So
and
it was just a lot of negativity. It was a lot of things to overcome. They couldn't overcome it all.
It's probably an even higher percentage at 38, which is just head scratcher why Kyle didn't run one more play there with 9 seconds left on third down and a timeout. It was surprising. It really, really was. But if Kyle's argument, and I guess it's the only argument that could possibly hold water, like if his argument is, I believe in my kicker to hit a 41-yard field goal, I would say, well, you should. So, like, I get, I guess, why you did that, but I still would have tried to make it a little bit easier, given the fact it was a sloppy day, sloppy track. He'd already missed one. Why not just make it a little bit easier? But you're right. With everything working against the 49ers, Brock Purdy still did his job enough to put his team in position with a, would have been, could have been game-winning drive. It just was not meant to be. Larry, before we hop into, I see you have starred some super chats. We'll get into those in just a second and see what people want to talk about. But we got some significant streaks snapped and 1 or 2 streaks that are noteworthy enough to keep an eye on that are still going. The streaks that have been snapped, we have 4 significant snap streaks. Number 1, the 15-game regular season winning streak for the 49ers is obviously over. Brock Purdy's undefeated start for his career in the regular season is over, along with his start this year in games without an interception. The have scored 30 or more points streak to start a year, and going back to last year, obviously both of those streaks are now snapped. And most easy to see and most dramatically, Jake Moody's streak of no missed kicks came to an end, and it did so in game-losing fashion. He had not missed a kick before he missed these two. So we went from very impressed, nothing is wrong, to now maybe it's time to call Robbie Gould. There's a reason why people overreact. Maybe you and I are even overreacting. Maybe they haven't lost any faith in Moody at all. The question is, has Moody lost any faith in himself? And if the answer is no there, you keep going forward. But you and I already agreed. I would call Robbie this week. You got all that cap space. You cannot let, we didn't have enough money to pay our never missed a big kicker to come on back in a year we're trying to win a Super Bowl, especially when you got the money to do that. Especially when you got the money to do that. And you can, you know, here's the deal. What if I told you that you can sign Robbie Gould and have enough money to re-sign Brandon Ayuk next year, and you can have both? Wouldn't you want to do that? I mean,
well, I mean, here's the thing. People
well built enough, Larry, to not be worried about running back, cornerback, safety depth when you've got a kicking issue. If you have a kicking issue, isn't that worth paying for?
I mean, people love to read, they love to read the tea leaves and guess along with the team. And right now, there's a lot of people saying, oh, that's knee-jerk to talk about moving Jake Moody. Why? Because they just saw the 49er players and coaches all go to the podium and say, it's not Jake's fault, man. Wasn't on Jake. That doesn't change anything. That does not change anything. They're going to support him. They're going to support him verbally 100% of the time, even beyond them bringing in Robbie Gould. You know what I mean? So right. They could bring in Robbie Gould tomorrow, and still on Friday, when asked about Jake Moody, they're gonna be like, "Hey man, we believe in Jake. We love Jake. We believe in Jake. Jake's the future." Blah 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 blah.
Right.
So
Jordan
if you're
Poole,
waiting,
going to be here for years,
right,
until 24 hours later when he's traded to Washington.
Right. Yeah, Mike Dunleavy. Yeah, Jordan Poole's going to be here for another 4 years. He wasn't here for another 4 days. These guys lie. And the bottom line is, right now, I guarantee you they've thought it, and I guarantee you they're considering it. And to what degree, we're not going to know until the move actually gets done. I would say, to sign Robbie Gould this morning would probably be knee-jerk, but I bet you a call would be made to him saying, hey, Robbie, before you sign elsewhere, would you give us the phone call? If somebody else is going to ring you.
Larry. I mean, that's the thing. Maybe Gould in his own mind is sitting on a beach with a pina colada in his hand and thinking, I'm never going to step on a football field again. I've made a ton of cash. I'm living a great life. I'm done. But you might want to call and find that out. Yeah, I'm just saying, you might want to just give him a call and find out. Maybe
you might want to find out. I mean, what's more important? A kicker that can make it from 60 or a kicker that will make it from 45? What's more valuable there? That's really the question. What's more valuable? Because it's not about money. It's not about money. Robbie Gould made $4.8 million. If the Niners want to go sign Robbie right now, they're already a month into the year. They could probably spend less than $3 million and get him signed. And they have $41 million under the cap and plenty to roll over if they want. So it's really just a matter of what move do they want to make, and how do they feel about Robbie, and how do they feel about Jake. And do they, but I would say Jake's only got one more pressure kick that he misses before they're calling up Robbie. I really believe that's about, if you said make a prediction, I'll predict one more miss that, if you miss from 55, no, not a problem. If you miss from 45, it is a problem. And that's how this game is measured, sadly. If he misses one more kick from 40 something yards, I think they bring back Robbie and move Jake aside temporarily.
Let me answer your question specifically, though, Larry. What would you rather have? The guy who can hit from 60 or the guy who won't miss from 40?
45.
I wonder if the NFL doesn't think, and Kyle doesn't think, I'd rather have the could do it from 60, because we live in an offensive era where fourth and 5 or less on your side of the field is a you should go for it scenario now. So, 4th and 5 from this is going to be a bomb field goal, or we're going to give the ball over maybe at midfield. You maybe try that field goal more than, hey, you're somewhere around a 35, 38, 42-yard field goal, but it's 4th and short, so we're going to go for it. Now, I don't know if the modern aggressive way to go about coaching 4th down brings the Niners back to Robbie Gold faster than it turns them away from Jake Moody. I don't know. I guess we'd have to ask Kyle about that, and he'd never tell you for real. So,
well, I mean, close only matters in horseshoes and hand grenades. You've heard that saying before, right?
Yeah, I know. Did you ever play a game called hand grenades? Or are they talking like actual, just get this hand grenade close and it'll do the job?
I think they're actually talking about real hand grenades.
All right, let's talk about some streaks intact here, Larry, because there are a couple things that are, again, doom and gloom Monday for sure. Nobody's happy with the loss, but I can tell you this definitively right now. Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel will come back healthy within a week or two. Every single plan that this team has to win a Super Bowl is still very much on track. The Niners, with yesterday's loss in Cleveland, are still among the very best teams in the sport, full stop. No reason to go panicking here. Christian McCaffrey's consecutive games scoring a touchdown has now reached a dozen, which is the longest of his career. He's one touchdown away from tying Jerry Rice's franchise record of 13 straight games with a touchdown. Now, that's consecutive games. So if Christian McCaffrey were to miss this week, that streak is over. It's not games that you were available and played. It's consecutive regular season games. So that streak hangs in the balance. Including the postseason, Christian McCaffrey has scored one or more touchdowns in 15 straight games now, which is the longest active streak of any NFL player and the longest streak by a member of the Niners in franchise history. So he's looking to build upon both of those if he's healthy enough to play in Minnesota. His 15 consecutive games with a touchdown tie Hall of Famers John Riggins and O.J. Simpson for the second most consecutive games, postseason included, with a touchdown in NFL history. With a touchdown on the opening drive, even though it didn't lead to a victory, this team is still cooking on opening drives. They have scored on their opening drive in 8 consecutive regular season games. And even though it wasn't a day that you can say the 49ers run defense played particularly well, once again, they held no runner eclipsed 100 yards all by himself as an individual. This is 33 consecutive games that the 49ers have prevented a running back from going over 100 yards on them individually. And at 33 in a row, that is the longest active streak in football. So they still got that, and that's good. So it's not all doom and gloom, but a disappointing loss on a day where everything went wrong. They played poorly, got physically beaten, didn't have the officials giving them any help at all throughout the entire day, and they were still lining up for a game-winning field goal on a day where they didn't have much business winning a football game. To me, Larry, where the game really died early, it's easy to look at everything that happened late and say this is all responsible for that game probably died for the 49ers over their second and third drives. So they're up 7-0. They're up 7-0 after the opening drive, and then both teams trade missed field goals. The 49ers went 3 and out. They had a first down to Kittle vanish due to a Spencer Burford illegal use of hands. So now you're replaying third down after marching off the yardage. It's 3rd and 13, and that was one of those Brock lets it go to Ayuk, and it goes off of Ayuk's hands. He could have had that. He should have had it. It would have been one of the best plays of the day had he had that, and it would have kept the Niners ahead of the chains. So instead of it being 14-0 or 10-0, after 3 offensive possessions, It's still just 7-0. This team, after the Fred Warner interception, had the ball 1st and 10 from the Cleveland 26 and came away with no points. 1st and 10 on a team's 26-yard line when they got the best defense in football, that can't be a goose egg. And it was. You at least got to get the field goal there. But Moody missed it. And that first miss was just as bad as the last miss.
I mean, I'll disagree. I mean, there's going to be close games. I mean, the Niners led at halftime. They had a lead in the fourth quarter. I mean, I don't know that you can say that they blew this game in the first half when they're leading at halftime and leading in the fourth quarter.
I think you got a much different feeling of a football game.
Sure.
I mean, with PJ Walker down 14-0. That's a different feel. Like, again, that's when the sadness factory starts to doing the work for you. And every Cleveland Brown is looking at the tip of their cleats, and every fan in there is going, shit, another year. Oh, here we go again. Like, you got to use Cleveland's self-deprecating momentum against them. And the 49ers did more to keep Cleveland in that game by not scoring early than maybe even Cleveland did to stay in that game.
Yeah, I watched that game twice now. I would say that what stands out to me is the Niners are up 17-16. They force a punt. They're on the Browns' 11th drive. Niners get it back with 3 minutes left, or I should say, the Niners go 3 and out. The Browns get it back with 3 minutes left, and the Niners are still up 17-16, and the first, it's 1st and 10 from the 26, and Walker throws incomplete on first down, and then he throws a pass to Elijah Moore that's incomplete on second down, and it gets to 3rd and 10, and the Niner defense really was bowing up, and Walker, throws the ball to the receiver, and Gibson has the hit. I mean, as much as that would have been 4th and 10. 4th and 10. The Niners would have gotten the ball back with 2 minutes and 40 seconds left, and all they need is a couple first downs, and the game's over, and they win 17-16. Instead, that drive continues, and then it gets to another play where Mooney Ward gets, a phantom hold. And so now you're in field goal range, and eventually Hopkins makes the 29-yard field goal, and suddenly the Browns are up. I mean, that's where I think this game changed is on the Gibson penalty. I really do. This game was going to be close. This game, I mean, I thought there was a chance for a blowout. If there was, but that was before I saw the weather and really saw the impact of this Browns defense, and they're good on all 3 levels. But I really think it was the penalty to get on Gibson that swung the game. I really do.
Yeah,
I mean, this was a close game. This was a close game. And people want to say that sour grapes fine, but that to me, if you 4th and 10, you're looking at 4th and 10 against a really good Niner defense that has momentum with inside of 3 minutes to play. That call gets called correctly, and it's 4th and 10, and what's the conversion rate on 4th and 10? Very, very low. So I that's ultimately where this game was lost. If there was one thing as far as game within the game, when you had no Bitonio, an injured center, a rookie right tackle, and you got Gregory and Bosa and Hargrave and Armstead, I really thought the 49er D-line would rock this Browns O-line, and they would be partying in the backfield against Walker all afternoon long, and it just never really materialized. So I would say I'm even though they got 9 hits on the quarterback and 2 sacks, and it's easy to be like, well, the D-line did their part. I don't know. On paper, the D-line should have had a major, major advantage over this banged-up Browns unit, and it didn't happen. They had a backup guard in there. They didn't even have their best O-lineman out there, and you've got this awesome D-line. This is supposedly like where you've put your, all your money on your cap is all invested in your D-line. Your D-line should have dominated this game and didn't.
Right. The guy who flashed the most defensively yesterday might have been Randy Gregory. And there's way too much talent for the new guy to flash like that. Good. I mean, good to see you, Randy. I like the way that you played. did a nice job taking snaps away from Drake Jackson already. I can see that.
Yeah, Randy Gregory was really good.
He was.
He had a tackle for a loss against Ford. He had a perfect sack on a TE stunt.
Gregory and Warner played the best defense yesterday for the 49ers. You know, Fred had another interception back-to-back weeks. First linebacker to do that for the Niners in a while, so he played really well. I thought Talanoa Hufanga had a bad game. Diamador Lenore had that interception, but no one had a great game. I think that they missed Greenlaw, and after you and I talked to Tony Grossi of theland.com, we spoke with him yesterday previewing this game. I thought that the Niners were going to be in a really tight game. And then he almost talked me into a Niner blowout based on all of the problems across Cleveland's offensive front. But it was the 49ers offensive line that spent much of the day struggling out there against a stout defensive front. I mean, what we had, and you and I talked about this last week, Larry, is we had 13.6 points per game versus 15 points per game. And that's what we had. We had a game that didn't get out of the teens. You know, defenses matter. And both of these defenses, here's the thing, the 49ers defense, as disappointing as it might have been in a loss, they didn't have a bad day. It's just the 49ers offense did have a bad day while Cleveland's defense was having a good day. And there you go.
But I will say this. I mean, let's be honest about this too. The Niners came in giving up 266 yards per game, and in this game gave up 334.
Yep.
The Niner defense came in allowing 13.6 points per game and gave up 19. The Niner defense came in giving up 64 yards rushing on average on the ground and gave up 160.
Yeah, that's where the game is lost if you really want to get into one number. It was a ground game, and the Niners got beat on the ground.
The offense, I mean, and there were some highlights on the D. I mean, there's no question there were some highlights on the D. Fred Warner's interception was a phenomenal play. How about Oren Burks, his hustle tackle down the field against Amari Cooper? Great play.
Hufanga whiffed hard on Amari Cooper. I haven't seen Hufanga get caught reaching or leaning quite like that in any game that he's played. So he had a rough one yesterday.
Nick Bosa had a nice bat down on a pass. Gregory had the sack on the TE stunt. Eric Armstead had a tackle for loss against Hunt that was phenomenal. Bosa had a nice sack. Demo with a pick and a return. I thought Flanagan Fowles made a great diving pass breakup. Randy Gregory had a terrific tackle for a loss against Jerome Ford in the backfield. You know, the defense had their highlight plays, but, you know, the thing about it is the Niners have two spectacular all-pro linebackers, and we don't realize how much they do. And when you take Greenlaw off the field, he is a tone-setting physical menace. He is one of the NFL's best defensive players, and they didn't have him. And that was huge, because if there was one thing in this game, you said, did you expect the Niner offense to struggle? Well, I guess, looking how good the Browns are on defense, yeah, especially on all three levels, on a mucky, wet day, and then when you factor in, Debo was out and CMC got knocked out and Trent was out there less than 100%. That wasn't that surprising. What was surprising is that the 49er defense gave up 160 rushing yards to a Browns team that didn't have Nick Chubb, and the previous 2 weeks had not even eclipsed 100 yards rushing, and they give up 160.
Well, and I wonder
4.7 a carry.
I wonder if the Browns didn't just exploit the fact that Dre Greenlaw's sideline to sideline speed wasn't out there. And I think Greenlaw cleans up an awful lot of those runs that feel like they're coming out of a tunnel on the edges. And he wasn't out there to clean it up. I thought that the Browns yesterday did a better job running outside of the hashes than they did running in between the tackles on the 49ers. And that's, Kevin Stefanski coming up with the right way to run against the Niners, because running up the middle is really, really tough. So you got to get outside, and maybe getting outside's a lot easier to do on days where Dre Greenlaw is not out there to meet you. So tip of the cap to the Cleveland Browns. They deserve to be congratulated for the win. it was unexpected. Probably their most surprising outcome of the year, given that it was PJ Walker just getting promoted from the practice squad. It was a good day for Cleveland. It was a bad day for San Francisco. Larry, let's get to some super chats. I see you got like 12 different super chats already out there. While you're dialing those up, let me invite everyone to number one, of course, try our sponsor, Palmetto Superfoods, and the acai bowl that is there. But number two, go ahead and hit like or subscribe right now. Larry, your subscriber count is climbing in such an impressive fashion. Again, you're inspiring watching you work. It's been great. You're over 26,000 now. We're approaching 8,500 over here. I'd love to be at 10,000 ahead of Thanksgiving. And if you don't want to miss a thing that Larry and I do, and we do an awful lot together, be subscribing to both of our channels, please. Hit that like button, make the algorithm like us. And what I can say is more people are liking and finding us by the week in 49ers Wake Up than before. We have, I do believe, measured the largest day after 49ers program, Larry, maybe in the world. Are we global here now? Is that where the internet goes? Is it global? Are we the biggest 49er morning after recap show in the world? I think we should probably start promoting ourselves as such, because we're dwarfing a couple of local radio stations, and it's good to be over here on YouTube, to say the least. We're both very, very happy with what we're doing. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, make the algorithm like us as much as you do. Thank you very much. All right, what do we got? What do we got from a?
We also want to thank those local radio stations for shopping our sponsors as well, because they need sponsor ideas desperately. So why not shop ours?
Isn't that pathetic? Isn't that pathetic?
That tells you everything you need to know. By the way, the Krug show.
I'm getting angry now, Larry. I think I'm going to start going after theirs now. We haven't done anything but let people call us. They want to be in business with us. I think it's maybe time I go after 95.7 The Game.
I think maybe I'll call Mike Chilton later today and see what Mike wants to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Krug show has almost picked up 3,000 subs in the last month.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, it's an amazing thing. We're at 26,035. We were at 25,000 a week ago. So we've had almost 1.7 million views of videos and live streams in the last 28 days, and 215,000 watch hours in the last 4 weeks alone. So
what you're 1.7? Here's the thing, Larry, I'm at 171,000 over the last month. So I got 10%.
You're coming, baby. You're coming.
It's happening. It's officially happening. 1,000 subscribers added for me in the last 28 days. So it's starting to actually blossom and happen, and you can feel it happening, and it's very exciting. It's fun to be on this end of the situation for real. And
it's great stuff. I mean, the audience has migrated to the phone, to digital, to podcast, to YouTube. Today at 4:00, I'll have a monster audience for Ned Coletti and Brian Sabian's reunion, which will be on the Krug show at 4:00 today. And onward and upward, as we make our run towards 100,000 subs at some point. But let's run down the supers right now. We've got T from the 203. I like that one. It says, morning, Damon and Krug. Who looked worse, the Eagles against the Jets or the Niners against the Browns? Bad week for the top tier NFC teams.
I mean, it's so. T from the 203 is a board op down in Miami who's got Bay Area ties and likes us both, Larry. He's a regular of mine, really good guy. And I would say
the Browns are better than the Jets. It's definitely the Eagles who looked worse.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. But it just shows you, I mean, yesterday was just proof positive how hard this is. Consistency is a really hard thing to be in this league. And Shanahan spoiled everyone with 15 straight wins to the point where you you start expecting this. You think it's going to come to you. Here's the thing. There's no shame in losing to good defenses. The cliche isn't offenses win Super Bowls. It's defense wins championships. And when you're playing a really good D, the Jets have one, the Browns have one. It's not going to be easy. I don't care who you are, how hot you are. You're coming into that game with whatever situation you got. Good defenses bring teams back down to earth faster than anything else. And that's both the Eagles and Niners ran into really good defenses.
Well, and in the Jets-Eagles game, you don't win in the NFL when you're -4 on the turnover table.
Right.
And that's what the Eagles were. The Eagles had 4 turnovers. 3 of them were interceptions by Jalen Hurts. The Eagles normally are a great running team. DeAndre Swift had 10 carries for 18 yards, 1.8 a carry. Boston Scott, 1 yard a carry. Kenneth Gainwell only had 2 carries. Philly ran 22 times, but for 80 yards.
Did you see the Salah quote? Salah's post-game quote said, look, we haven't beaten every quarterback we played this year, but we've embarrassed all of them.
Okay.
It was a pretty good quote. I mean, I liked it. He's up there, fighting for back page space on the New York Post, and that'll get it. And by the way, the New York Giants are the most unwatchable, get them off my TV football team that I can remember. They should be banished from any concept of playing on television, much less primetime games. New York Giants games should only be broadcast on radio. No one should have to watch that shit.
Yeah, seriously. A couple other supers here. HB Nate 55 says, what is a forward pass?
When you ask the girl at Palmetto if you can buy her acai bowl for her, that is a forward pass.
That is a forward pass. And that is a legal forward pass as opposed to an illegal forward pass. Gizmo Maltese says, do small hands make it harder to throw in the rain? I don't know, but Brock Purdy doesn't have small hands.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy has bigger hands. He has the exact same hand size as Patrick Mahomes. He has bigger hands than, I don't know, Trey Lance. Brock Purdy's actually got good-sized hands. But yes, small hands you would think would make it harder to throw in the rain.
I think what makes it harder to throw in the rain is that wet ball more than the hand size. I mean, it's just what you're gripping is a totally different animal.
Yeah, I mean, and if you don't believe it, go get a football and a bucket of water and have somebody put the ball in the water, flip it to you, and then make you catch it and throw it quickly.
Right. It gets demonstrably heavier.
It's heavier, but it's also slick. It slides around, and there's a little bit of movement. And all it takes is a little bit of movement with the ball in your hands. I mean, the ball that was the worst ball all day was the one that nothing happened except the incompletion. It was the sideline route to Kittle from Purdy, and Kittle was open. He looked over his right shoulder for the ball, put out his left hand, and the ball fluttered and floated to the sideline over his left shoulder. That was the worst ball that he threw, and it was wet. And then I think a couple plays later, he tried to throw, and the ball slipped out of his hands altogether. Bazzy Mian says, even Brady needed Vinatieri to win his first Super Bowl. Special teams is essential for deep playoff runs. We cannot afford unreliability. Go get Robbie Gould now. I will say this, it seems cutthroat, right? To say, oh my God, this guy was 9 for 9, and he has no track record of success in the NFL. So doesn't matter what you did in college. It's all about your NFL. And the Niners are firmly inside their Super Bowl window. Can they afford to go into Minnesota next week with Jake? Sure. But if he misses another kick or two, whether it costs them a game or not, I think they would be very wise to call Robbie Gould. I mean, Robbie Gould, is never missed in the playoffs. The guy's done it for 18 years. You saw him kick a game winner in Green Bay in far worse conditions than what you saw yesterday. And it was like a no-doubter. So, nothing against Jake. I love Jake. I've talked to him. He's a solid kid. And I'm not saying he's not going to have a great future, but there is not going to be an acceptable reason why this 49er team didn't make it to the Super Bowl and win it. They're just not going to, unless it's just an avalanche of injuries or they get beat by some spectacular performance. missing a field goal with a rookie kicker when you had Mr. Automatic on your team last year and you chose to replace him is not going to be responded well to.
No,
just not.
It's and here's the thing. I don't
call that harsh
Jake
if you
Moody.
want.
I don't think Jake Moody is bad at this. He could be very good at this one day. This is not the day to figure it out. It just isn't. And
it's not the year to figure it out.
Right. And it's anyone's feelings or mental health or belief in themselves are totally irrelevant to what the Niners' goals are this year. You assemble the best team possible. If you get better with Robbie Gould, you have the opportunity to add him. Maybe you add him. You really do. I would think about it. I mean, here's the thing. John Lynch and company are thinking about it. We don't even have to say like they should be. Of course they are. These guys are smart. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that they're at least contemplating the concept of doing exactly this. I mean, to me, there's three or four key questions coming out of this game. Should the Niners call Robbie Gould? Can John Lynch add a true difference maker at the trade deadline before November 1st? When I say difference maker, I'm talking about I see difference makers as Jeremy Chin from Carolina, Patrick Surtain from Denver, Brian Burns from Carolina, Devontae Adams of the Raiders. I mean, these are the true difference makers that are potentially available out there. Does he add one? And then the other question I think has to be asked this morning
is Hunter Renfrow. I mean, he feels like he's an odd man out now with the Raiders. What about Hunter Renfrow? I mean, Devontae
Is he a
Adams,
difference maker? I don't know if he's a difference maker. I'm not saying he couldn't help, Damon, but I just don't know if he's a true difference maker. If I was going to add a receiver to this group, I'd want to add either a difference maker like an Adams, or I want a vertical threat because you want a complementary piece. And if you could get a Rondale Moore, if you could get a McCole Hardman, if you could get somebody who has really created a lot of space and big playability, that's the receiver I'm looking for, probably. But then the other question is, why does Schwartz own Shanahan? He's 9-1 against Shanahan. Is it the wide 9? I don't know.
But it's, some coach. Why does Shanahan own McVay? I don't know, but he does.
Yeah. Enrique Solis says we miss Dre Greenlaw, especially in the run game.
Agreed.
No doubt. Big time player. HB Nate 55 says they need all 41 minutes for next year. 41
million, he's saying. Well, here's the thing. What you spend on Robbie this year doesn't affect what you got next year unless you give him a 2-year deal, and you're not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with this completely. You're in your Super Bowl window. Next year, deal with next year. And, there's any number of different ways that you can get the cap cooked up. You don't need all 41. You need to re-sign. If anything, at the end of the year, some of these decisions will be made for you. Somebody may retire. Somebody may be too hurt. You may move on from guys like Juszczyk in a year. There's all kinds of different ways to massage the cap between now and next year. Worry about next year.
Yeah.
This year is the only Super Bowl you can win is in Vegas this year. And, sorry, but I don't think it's going to be a good consolation prize as you don't win the Super Bowl to be like, hey, we rolled over $41 million in cap room. Great. Then hang a flag at Levi's that said $41 million in cap room and see how excited the fans get for that. I totally disagree with that they need to roll over all $41 million. I think that's illogical. Drunken Ninja says perfect storm. Bad weather, bad play, bad calls, overconfident. Should be a great learning lesson for the team. Go Niners. Well said. That's a good one.
Can I give you another well-said statement about yesterday's game that leans positively into who the Niners are? It came from Emmanuel Acho, and I saw him tweet yesterday.
Very smart guy.
The Niners played an awful lot of that game without all-pro Christian McCaffrey, all-pro Deebo Samuel, or Pro Bowl talent Dre Greenlaw, who missed the entire game, yet they were still a 41-yard field goal away from winning against the best defense in football on the road. I'm really not worried at all, he said. And that's the thing. I'm not worried at all.
No worried about what? I mean, what's to worry about?
The Niners are going undefeated. What I am worried about is the toll on Christian McCaffrey's body and Deebo Samuel, two off injured throughout their careers, are here now officially injured coming out of a week 6 game. And, the war of attrition of their own bodies will go a very long way into dictating where this year goes. Here's the thing. You could miss one of those guys. Both of them, that's trouble. That's trouble. If you're missing both of those guys, that's trouble.
Okay. And I suggested a month ago that they look at Jonathan Taylor. Now Jonathan Taylor has signed. A couple running backs that are available, if you believe the rumor mill, are James Conner of Arizona and Josh Jacobs of the Raiders. I'll tell you what I didn't like seeing, and I haven't enjoyed watching much this year, Elijah Mitchell. No. Elijah Mitchell doesn't look at all good. And, to me, he's the guy to trade with a draft pick for another back. Why? Because he's a small man with a big man's game. And when you're a small man with a big man's game, you got a career of injuries staring you in the face. And if you could add, you're only as good as your backs. I mean, you especially if you're Shanahan. Everything's predicated on the play action game. Well, you don't have much of a play action game if you don't have a run game. So when you're inside your Super Bowl window, you need a run game. So either lean on J.P. Mason and Ty Davis-Price and feel comfortable, lean into that and feel comfortable with it. Or if you don't feel comfortable with it, then go get James Conner or Josh Jacobs or, some running back. LaVisca Chenault, or I don't know. I mean, there's got to be somebody out there that you could get running back wise to help your situation. Because, man, at the rate he's going, the chances that CMC is 100% come playoff time seem very remote. And I don't like what I've seen from Elijah Mitchell. I don't like the fact that he runs 3 plays and he's hurt. And then it doesn't seem like they've got full confidence in Mason or TDP. And so guess what? You got this awesome Super Bowl championship caliber team, and you got, a running back need, even though you've got a great number 1 back in McCaffrey. So maybe getting over the top means adding a running back, because I'd rather have an extra back that I don't need than need a back that I don't have. So that's how I kind of view that. We'll see. John Lynch has got a lot to think about. There's a lot of talk that Zach Ertz is available. Would you like to have him? I might. There's a lot of talk that Danielle Hunter and Brian Burns are available. Do you need more edge rush? You might. There's talk that K'Wan Williams and Jeremy Chin are both available. Do you need more defensive back and slot corner help? You might. Surtain is a number 1. There's talk that the Niners kick tires on the Bears corner, Jalen Johnson. Do they need another corner? They might. All these things are going to be bandied about between Lynch and Peters in the next few weeks.
Well, it really better be the next few days, because if you wanted to get to 9 of the 10 players that you just brought up, you're going to have to be first in line to a lot of those guys. And to be first in line, it means you're not waiting for the deadline to make a deal. You do it this week or next week. So
there's a report that the Niners called Jalen Johnson, or the Bears, about Jalen Johnson this week.
Yeah.
Jalen Johnson's a good young corner. The thing about corner is the Niners do have Samuel Womack and Darrell Luter Jr. slated to return. How much confidence do they have in those guys? I don't know. And then people who would suggest, go get an offensive tackle. That's why offensive tackles get paid what they get paid, because they're never available. So if you're going to go with McKivitz and Trent Williams unless one of those guys, just falls apart, and then maybe even then you're going to have to go off the scrap heap because there's just no tackles available.
I'll tell you, yesterday's entire year hung in the balance when Trent was down there. Did you see the way that he got rolled up on? I thought, oh man, that could be a knee, that could be an ankle, that could be a meniscus, that could be a lot.
Well, and here's the other one, Damon. Let's talk about this for a second. It was the ankle. It was his right leg, and it was the ankle. He had the ankle retaped. He went out there on adrenaline because the guy's a war daddy. But today, he's feeling like S. I guarantee it. Now he's going to be, a few days from now, matched up on a fast carpet in Minnesota against Danielle Hunter. So don't think for a second that the Niners may have to play next week without Trent Williams. So that's another thing to think about. Another reason they should have had more of a run-heavy plan, I thought, in this last game, and may need a run-heavy plan in the next game, because you may not have Trent Williams this week.
Right.
And
look,
that's today's reality. Kyle speaks at 1:00. We'll find out, or 1:30. We're going to find out in that presser the status of Trent Williams, and I would not be surprised if Trent was, doubtful or questionable for Minnesota.
You can't have any Fox going to commercial break with their sad piano music playing under Trent Williams and expect to go far this year. You can't. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, that's the saddest. They're going to play that at my funeral, Larry. Dun, 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 dun. Just going to have a guy playing a sad little Casio keyboard over in the corner because we can't afford a grand piano at my funeral these days.
That might seem a tad insensitive, actually, if you really think about it. If all of a sudden we heard NFL themes at your funeral. Your wife's banging the casket. No.
At least she's just banging the casket, Larry.
Give it time. All right, Vikings says, Larry, do you think Brock will ever be a quarterback to put the team on his back when he has to? Maybe not this season. He's young still.
I mean,
hasn't he already done it at some time? I mean, he completed 95% of his passes 2 weeks ago.
He drove the team into game-winning field goal range. He didn't miss the kick. He did his job. It wasn't even. Yeah, he circled the wagons in between the first and the last drives. He wasn't. He had a rough day.
And he owned it. That was a beautiful part. He went to the post-game presser and he owned it. He wasn't good. He was not good. It was not a good performance by Brock. It wasn't. But don't let people fool you into thinking that Brock was the reason they lost. Brock was not the reason they lost. You can make a great argument that Jalen Hurts was the reason the Eagles lost. He had 3 interceptions. They had 4 turnovers. But Brock made 1 turnover and 3 bad throws in the first half, 3 bad throws in the second half. One of them resulted in a turnover. But other than that, he made a number of good throws. If you go back and look at, I went back and looked at the condensed late last night, and you see every play. And I went through every single play. He had a bunch of really good plays. You mix in 4 drops. I mean, to me, if you said, who do you want to blame the most? In some ways, I want to blame Ayuk the most because Ayuk is spectacular. Ayuk is Debo, and Debo, Ayuk, and CMC are all spectacular weapons. And with no CMC and no Debo, Kittle not doing much, it was time for Brandon to step up, and he dropped 3 balls that hit him in the hands. If he catches those balls, it's a different game.
So the game that you saw yesterday is the only reason why Brandon Ayuk is not considered a top 10 receiver in this league. He gets a little bit of dropsies on catchable balls. He's spectacular. I love him. I'm a Brandon Ayuk guy through and through.
He's a great player.
But yesterday is the reason why he doesn't get inserted into the best wide receiver in football conversation because of games like that.
It sounds harsh, but you know what? You got to make plays. You got to make plays. And in a game like yesterday, that's when your team needed you most. And it was his game to step up. Unfortunately, he didn't step up.
I mean, what are the notes that you're giving to Brandon Ayuk? Like, his routes are so precise. He's so fast. He's good. He plays through contact. He is running wide open more often than he's well covered. The only note is, hey, Brandon, catch the fucking ball. That's it.
Well, I mean, there's standards, right? If the guy's got a massive catch radius, he's been awesome all summer. But when the ball hits you in the hands in the NFL and you got receiver under your position, you got to catch it. You got to catch it. I mean, it's as simple as that. Jake Moody, 41-yard field goal. Got to make it. Brandon Ayuk, balls that hit you in the hands, got to catch it. And you can sit there and we can talk about anything and, soft pedal it all you want. That's the bottom line. Gavin Butcher says refs throwing the flag on Gibson was the killer. Moody should not have been a factor. It's unfortunate that flag cannot be reviewed. Will the NFL adjust? I don't know if they'll adjust. They should. I think they ought to go to my idea, which is stop making these. If the officials are going to be part-time, why make them the star of the show? Why? Just see. Well, I wouldn't even name them. I would make them nameless. Here's official A, official B. They're not stars. They're school teachers. They're firemen. They're whatever. They're not even full-time. They're not stars. Don't make them stars. Stop treating them like they're Major League Baseball umpires. Major League Baseball umpires are far better than NFL officials. They do it every day. They're full-time. NBA officials are far better than, even though they call the game badly at times, but they're full-time. They're training to be NBA officials in the offseason. NFL officials are teaching school on Wednesday and boarding a plane and officiating a game on a Sunday. That's outlived its usefulness. It's not quaint. It's not charming. It's just negligence at this point. And stop making the call on the field some advantage deal.
Right,
no, the game's too fast. Call it an inquiry. Go to the booth review, and without any lean, make the right call. Instead of, you've got a flawed system. If you have a flawed system, the old saying, if you have a flawed premise, you have a flawed conclusion. Well, it's the same kind of thing. The premise for their officials is flawed, and thus the officiating is flawed. Eliminate these premises and just go with get all the calls right, and don't worry about some guy's ego or somehow making somebody look bad. Who cares? He's a nobody anyway. He's a part-time nobody. And you're not even going to make him full-time. So why should we treat him like he's a star? He's not a star. Well, Devontae Adams is a star. The officials are school teachers and talk show hosts and doctors and lawyers and truck drivers, and they're full-time something else. They're part-time officials. Don't make them stars. Go to an inquiry and get it right.
Well, here's the thing. My problem, human error is part of it. Like, doctors aren't perfect, and they're doing surgery on you and your family members. And that's
Ask Steve Kerr about that.
Right. Doctors aren't perfect. No one is perfect. No one is infallible. I don't care if they're full-time, part-time, well-paid, poorly paid. Mistakes are made at a human level. So the whole point is you're bringing in replay to make sure that these mistakes no longer define outcomes of games. Either get replay all the way in or all the way out. I either want to live with it or without it. This whole, replay for this, but not for that. Replay for this decision, but not an actual on-field choice. The choices that are made in bang-bang moments affect the play more than, that ball was rocking just a little bit. And so to me, what needs to be among the most reviewed plays are unreviewable.
The fastest plays in the game to the naked eye are the ones that are most in need of a safety net. Would we all agree with that? You need a safety net for the fastest plays.
You can't overturn a judgment call? Is that the deal? Judgment call should be the number one thing overturnable because you use the wrong judgment. Like that's, you can't officiate intent. Yeah, you can. You can officiate intent. Watch the Gibson replay. Watch it. We showed it earlier in the show today. The intent of Gibson was not to attack and injure a defenseless player. The intent of Gibson was to pull up, hit him cleanly, and not destroy him. You could see it on the replay a lot easier than you could see it in real time.
They do it in college.
Right.
They don't say targeting, you're out of the game, it's made on the field. They do it from the booth. So why can't, if it can be done in college, why can't you officiate the toughest calls from above? I think there's a lot of distrust in the replay booth because it's like, well, it comes from New York and it's league, it's a league deal. It's like, okay, if you want to have transparency, greater transparency, then have greater transparency. But
Beard, hold on,
don't but have
Beard.
a safety net. It's okay. It's okay. You're working on a high rise, on a scaffold. Do you want a safety net or not? Well, I think if I was working on that scaffold, I'd like to have a safety net.
So Beard here is saying you can't launch into a defenseless wide receiver. Read the rule book. At no point in time did Gibson launch himself at anything. He didn't launch him. He didn't leave his own feet. He didn't go full spearing of anyone, anything. He went shoulder to shoulder. The only reason why you could even say that receiver was defenseless is because he leapt in the air. Physics has to be considered. And
it's such a double standard. I'm so sick of this. It's such a double standard. I mean, that's the other thing, too. You can't go helmet to helmet on the quarterback, but, man, you can go helmet to helmet on the running back.
Right.
So what, the running back and his head don't matter and his family don't matter? It's like, so do we – obviously, we make judgment calls on certain things. There's helmet-to-helmet hits all over the NFL, but you don't hit the quarterback in the helmet. Otherwise, you're drawing a penalty. They just need to take – the game is – let's just acknowledge some realities about the game. It's physical, and it's fast, and it's played at a ridiculous speed by some of the greatest athletes in our country. And it's just very, very difficult to officiate because of the speed of the athletes and how fast these plays happen. So that's all. We're not trying to demonize anybody. Let's just acknowledge the reality, which is it's part of the reason the sport's so popular is that it's physical and it's fast. And you can define the parameters all you want, but all we're saying is have the ability to take a look. If you're going to have the ability to take a look at anything, have the ability to take a look at everything. Otherwise, why do it? Otherwise, it leaves you asking, well, why is that not reviewable? And why? And it's almost like to understand the NFL rules of today, it's almost like you got to read there's U.S. history, there's American history, and then there's like the history of officiating in America. It's like you have to know how we got here. If you ever have a Mike Pereira on, we used to have him on a regular basis. He doesn't just tell you about the call. He tells you about the origin of the rule and how we arrived there. And it's like at the end of the day, I don't want all that. Just I don't, well, it used to be this was a catch, and then that was a catch, and then it was survive the ground, and now it's this, and then it's like, yeah, there's been so many changes to these rules that our heads are spinning. How about just you have replay, it's there for you guys to use it. And if you don't know what happened on the field, don't make a call. Just throw up, instead of throwing up a yellow flag, maybe you throw up a red flag. Oh, he didn't know what the call was. They threw up the inquiry flag. Now it goes to the booth with no prejudice, no lien, no premise, no anything. And people can just look at it and say, this is what we saw. Because let's be honest, if that happened yesterday and they went to the booth and they looked at that, they would have come back with good hit, clean hit, no penalty, 4th and 10. And that's ultimately what we want in that situation, is just for the thing to be called correctly.
Yeah. So look, Greg Olson, whose job it was to go over the middle, Greg Olson, who will defend the receiver's right to a safe game as much as anyone, was like, that's not unnecessary roughness. There's nothing about that is outside of the realm of how you tackle somebody. And it's the truth. It really was. We'll get back to these super chats here, but again, are we watching the same game? I mean, this is why it's hard to have conversations with people, because two people can sit down, watch the same thing, and someone walks away with the dumbest talking point in the world. Guy named Six Pack Abs says PJ Walker cooked us. What? No, the running game is why you lost yesterday. The Browns' running game is where you got cooked. PJ Walker was 18 of 34, 192 yards and 2 picks. It was not great. He didn't. He didn't.
He only had 3. He ran 3 times for 1 yard, so he didn't cook you with his legs.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. He at no point in time was P.J. Walker cooking.
Right.
He made a couple of plays. He
wasn't terrible, but he hardly cooked them.
Both these teams were 3 for 12 on third down. Neither quarterback cooked a thing yesterday. That game was microwaved.
Amari Cooper made 2 or 3 amazing catches.
He did. Amari Cooper was the best wide receiver on the field yesterday.
I mean, if you said who were the best Browns yesterday, who would be your top 3? I would probably say, based on what I saw, I thought Kareem Hunt was really, really good. He only had 12 carries for 47 yards, 3 catches for 24 yards, but I just felt like he was hard to bring down. He always fell forward. I thought Kareem Hunt played really well. I would throw Amari Cooper in that mix as well. And then I would
that Jeremiah Owusu
Koromoa.
Is that how do you
JOK for the Notre Dame kid. Had 3 tackles for loss, 5 tackles, sack, 2 hits on the quarterback, tip pass. Yeah, JOK. He was fantastic.
They also had a really good day punting. I mean, their special teams executed in a way that the 49ers special teams did not execute. You had Bjorquez, their punter. I mean, he's out there with 4 punts for 218 yards, a touchback. He put 3 of his 4 kicks inside the 20. Mitch Wisnowski, he punted 6 times yesterday, only put 2 inside the 20. And he'd been doing that all year. So, look, the Niners were beaten in all 3 phases. They lost offensively, defensively, and in special teams, and it wasn't a good day for Kyle Shanahan either. So they got beat. And even with all that going wrong and some officials' decisions really working against them, they were still lining up for what could have been a game-winning field goal. But Kyle fucked that up too. So there you go.
A couple more supers here. We got a bunch of people who are throwing their comments out. Matthew Wood, it seemed like the Browns secondary was a huge factor to neutralize Purdy getting the ball out quick. The Browns secondary is really, really good.
Best pass defense in football.
Yeah, it's a fair. And I asked Shanahan about it. He said, yeah, they look good. He said, that might have been the best 3 cornerbacks they've gone up against this year. Talking Heads says, I guess it wasn't alarmist to take the Browns D seriously. Underestimating your opponent is just overestimating your own infallibility. Also, why allow CMC to go back in for 1 play after the injury? Yeah, I didn't understand what was going on there either. That needs a little bit more of explanation, because they're like, oh, CMC's back, and then they're like, he's running back to the locker room.
Right, and you saw him. You saw him on the sideline too. Like, he was stretching. He's doing this, he's doing the waist bend. You could tell something's wrong with his oblique there. But they put him back in, and then he came right out of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Ty Budd says, Bruce, thoughts on Brock Purdy showing frustration with man-to-man press timing disruption. Bad to put on film. Interior pressure was the biggest issue. Yeah, Dalvin Tomlinson had a good day for sure inside.
I mean, look, it was a day that I don't know if the press timing disruption was coming from that secondary or the fact that the 49ers offensive line had a bad day. I mean, the pressure was coming from everywhere, and that's what good defenses do. They put pressure on everything. Pressure on the sender, pressure on the receiver, pressure on the line. That's a really, really good team. And look, only know-nothing fans who don't watch much Cleveland Browns football were ones trying to just say, well, it's Cleveland. Yeah, they're going to beat Cleveland. It's because it's Cleveland. No, there's nothing that brings a team down to earth faster than a really good defense. And Cleveland had that, and the Niners knew it, and they didn't roll in there underestimating Cleveland at all.
No,
they just got beat.
Yeah, no, I mean, number 1 defense. Number 1 defense means something. And when you looked at them on film, because I watched Cleveland 3 times, and I looked at all those games, and they don't have a real discernible weakness. Like Dallas, I felt like the Niners could run on Dallas, and that Dallas couldn't run on the Niners. I didn't think the Browns could run on the Niners. They did. And I thought the Niners could run. I thought the Niners were going to struggle to run, and they did. To me, the surprising part of yesterday's game was that Cleveland was able to run on the Niners, and that Cleveland's O-line stood up against the Niner D-line. I didn't think that was going to happen. I really didn't.
This was a defense giving up 13.6 points per game against a defense giving up 15 points per game, and nearly that 2-point difference was the difference on the scoreboard. So, both these teams had good defensive afternoons. One was a little bit better than the others.
Dazza says, what was the time of possession difference? Maybe the 49er D was just tired as well. Apart from the rush yards, they seemed good. Time of possession
33:03 to 26:57. Wasn't really overwhelming, but yeah, this is the difference in, is your ground game working or not? And the ground game for the Niners didn't work particularly well, and for Cleveland it worked better against the Niners than any Niner opponent had to work for him all year. So
yeah, I mean, you tip your cap to the Browns, man. Schwartz had a great game plan. He's got really good players on all three levels. It does make you wonder though, if Kyle loves the wide nine and Schwartz was available this summer, why did the Niners not? And he loves the wide nine, and he's not. He was 8-1 against Shanahan. Why didn't the Niners consider hiring Schwartz?
I mean, maybe they did. I don't know.
Maybe they did.
I got no problems with Steve Wilkes. I think he's.
No, I don't either, but I'm just saying, that kind of made me wonder. Dennis Stein says super sticker. Thank you, Dennis. Thanks for supporting us. Viking says best combo on YouTube. Not even close.
Thank you.
Thank you, Viking. Dazzo says any news on Trent Williams, and CMC's injuries? We'll get Kyle at 1:30. 1:30 for Kyle. We got this one from Sugarnaut. Browns drafted Cade York in the 4th round in 2022. They cut him before the start of the 2023 season. Heck, Roberto Aguayo was a 2nd-round pick. He was cut. So, I mean, it's like, some do, some don't, some will, some won't. It just, you move on. I'm not saying that they should cut Moody, but I am thinking that they should be at least checking in today with Robbie Gould. HB Nate, I was asking, wasn't sure.
We forgot the question, but that's a nice fish you got there. It's quite a lunker in your profile picture. Nice job.
Niner Gold says, it's on Shanahan. No contingency plans for Debo, CMC, not giving the ball to JP. JJ, Browns had a better run and pass game plan. No rain excuses. By the way, Juwan Jennings needed to step up and did.
He did. Where was Ronnie Bell? It felt like Ronnie Bell didn't even get in that game. Did he get what's his snap count? I didn't read the Barrows snap count column that he always has after
he was active.
A Niner game. I didn't see him on the field. I didn't hear his name all day. Didn't even see him in a pattern.
Seriously, it seemed like a day for him too. JJ Raider, what if Robbie Gould misses his first kick? Then what? Then just give up the season, sell the franchise, and relegate the Niners to the XFL. No, I don't know.
I think you just start forfeiting games at that point.
Yeah, you just quit. You quit the league. Dazzle says, I think Brandon Ayuk is amazing, but if that was Diggs, Jefferson, Hill, AJ, Adams, we probably win the game, although the pass to CMC should have been a touchdown. Okay, Ayuk did leave us wanting more there. Jesse Wade, the rookie right tackle taken after Moody, played very well. Yeah, Dawan Jones. I think it wasn't after Moody. It was after Cam Latu. The Niners probably should have drafted Dawan Jones.
Speaking of
he's a house.
Injuries to tackles. Didn't Lane Johnson get hurt yesterday in that Eagles game?
I didn't see that. I watched the end of it. Ethan M says, does this take Brock out of the MVP race? Probably.
It's week 6. There's plenty of time to get back in it.
Yeah. Give it a week. Jimmy Kwan. I think Kyle looked frustrated too early. He gets props when they win, but needs to take the blame when they lose. Too many players not involved. I just thought that, look at don't overthink this. You're going up against the number 1 defense in rainy conditions. You've lost Debo in the first quarter. If nothing else, it screamed out 60-40 run pass. And they were over 50-50 pass run.
Well, because they couldn't get the run going. It's the thing.
The Browns did a great job of stuffing the Niner run.
Yeah, of course you want to run 60 times. When you're looking at 3rd and 11, how are you going to run 60 times?
I want to see more than 5 carries for JP Mason. And here's the bottom line on it too. If you don't have confidence in JP Mason, then you probably do need to be in the market for a running back because CMC's getting crushed.
Where's Ty Davis
And
Price? Does he play
and
on
Ty
this team
Davis
anymore?
Price is obviously not as good as Mason because he's further down the depth chart. And Elijah Mitchell practices one day and is 2
Kurt
more weeks
Connect.
on the injured list.
Yeah.
So that running back might be a real need. I saw a ESPN article this weekend saying that James Conner may get moved for a 6th-round draft choice. If James Conner's available for a 6th-round draft choice, then I'm
Right now.
calling Arizona and saying, here's my 5th. I'm jumping the line. I want James Conner. Send him over.
I wonder. But yeah, I would
Probably
go get James Conner if you could. Look, what'd you say? You wanted 60 run plays yesterday, Larry? They
I
only
want 60-40 split.
Oh, okay, because they only ran 55 plays yesterday, while the Browns got off 70. I mean, that's a lot more plays. So
yeah. G Code Travels Vlog POV says Tom Brady won Super Bowls with Adam Vinatieri, signed Robbie Gould. So it's always interesting. On a day like today, and this is one of the questions I asked yesterday in the post game. I'm like, who's going to get the most blame tomorrow? Today. Is it going to be Kyle, Brock, Ayuk, Kittle, Moody, the refs? It's probably going to be Purdy.
I think the smart show spreads the blame around because there's plenty to spread around. And that's what you and I have done here. I don't think it was one of those one guy, he's the reason, one play, that's the play. It was a mountain of mistakes. And in order to make a mountain of mistakes, it takes a full team to make a mountain of mistakes. And it takes a coaching staff to do that as well. It also takes an officiating crew to poorly decide on some of those mistakes. So it was, you lose football games in this league. It happens. There it is.
Alex says, Larry, why would the Cardinals trade within the division? Why anybody would trade at all for anything is because it advances their situation. Trades within the division are rare, but they're not unheard of. And there's an awful lot of teams that are enamored with the quarterbacks in this next class. And so you're going to see the worst teams in the league try to improve their draft, haul of picks here in the next few weeks. Trying for Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, Drake May. So I think you will see a bunch of deals. I really do. I think there'll be a bunch of trades made. Ethan M says Zach Moss would be a great fit to back up CMC. Yeah.
And again, the Cardinals are sitting there at 1-5. So they're already starting to think about next year more than this year. And they could be open for business.
Yeah. I mean, you're right, though. I mean, it's not normal that teams would trade within the division, but heck, the Niners just traded Trey Lance to the Dallas Cowboys. And it's not normal for teams to trade guys that they yesterday thought were their franchise quarterbacks to their bitter arch rivals, but the Niners did it. So I think it's safe to say you're only thinking about yourself. You're not really thinking about the other team. If you get a pick that you feel like makes you better in the future, you're going to do it. But you're right. Niners, if the price tag for the Cardinals, if James Conner's on the block for a 6th-round pick and John Lynch calls, you probably want a 5th or a 4th.
Right.
You know what I mean? The price, John, you want him, the price is higher for you. And John would probably even understand that.
I understand it. And I didn't go to Stanford, so there you go.
Kevin Allen. Purdy's a robot. They just have to make him more waterproof. Water and electronics don't miss.
He's AI.
He's AI.
With Brian Baldinger. Brock Purdy, he's AI. He wasn't yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, we got this one from Fleming SC. Says Moody missed a clutch kick. Let's move on. Otherwise, we'll start calling for a replacement for clutch pass and throws as well if it doesn't happen. Yeah, but I mean, let's be honest.
Morons do that too. But here's the thing. Purdy has got enough. This guy's won playoff games. We don't know what Moody's going to do because he's never seen the playoffs. We don't know. And Robbie Gould has a track record in postseason play that is impossible to point at and say that's anything other than 100%. So
You're just playing the odds. You're
Look,
just playing the odds.
The only reason why they drafted Jake Moody was because they decided we can't afford Robbie Gould. They can now afford Robbie Gould. You know, if you say, well, but you burnt a draft pick on Jake Moody. You burn a lot of draft picks on a quarterback who's not even here anymore. I don't care about that anymore. What can you do to get better this season? If they conclude they're better right now by adding Robbie Gould, they should be on the phone with Robbie Gould, and Jake Moody can go home and cry on a pillow that is guaranteed to still pay him millions of dollars.
This is an interesting question. Bobby Mira, why would the Niners gamble on a rookie kicker when the Super Bowl window's now? Most good teams now have veteran kickers. Is it just a cap issue? Hard to believe.
It was
the last time the Niners, it was a cap issue. Last time, once the Niners signed Hargrave, they were looking for cap relief anywhere they could find it, and this was one area. Also, maybe they saw some regression in Robbie. Who knows? Maybe Robbie has no interest. We're all this talk about Robbie. Maybe Robbie told them, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, you never know.
Well,
and then the other thing is the last time the Niners did win a Super Bowl, rookie kicker, Doug Bryan.
So here's the thing, too. Robbie never liked San Francisco. He never liked playing for the 49ers. He just did it. It was his job. He's got no connection to the team. He's not someone who's got any sort of romance attached.
I don't know about if he didn't like San Francisco. I interviewed him in December at his locker for 20 minutes, and he was glowing in his praise of Schneider, the special team coach, the locker room, Shanahan, the organization.
Right. He's a veteran enough guy.
But he's got three boys. You know, he's got three boys.
He's a veteran enough guy to say everything correctly in front of his locker room about how much he likes it here. But the truth is he rented. Larry, he stayed in a hotel. He never even bought a house. I mean, like, he didn't want to be out here but for the games. So maybe he's just done. I don't know.
It's possible. It is possible.
I would call him. I would call him just to see how he is. Again, he could be in the I'm drinking out of coconuts on a beach phase of his life and already 35 pounds heavier than the last time we saw him. Who knows?
And, you know, there's a lot of guys who miss the competition. Maybe he's one of those guys that misses the competition. Or maybe not. Guy kicked 18 years in the NFL. Maybe he's done. You're right. He lived out of a hotel, and he's got three boys. And, and why didn't he buy a house here? He didn't buy a house here because houses here cost a lot.
Look, he wanted to go back to Chicago when the Bears sucked because he just liked it more.
I'm surprised he's still available.
Yeah.
That makes me wonder if he wants to play. He might not want to play. And here's the bottom line. They could sign him tomorrow. He could be awesome in the regular season. They could get to the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, and he could miss from 32 yards out.
Right. Or,
that's the way it goes.
58-yard field goal to win a game, and that's 6 yards out of his range now at the age of 40, 41, whatever he would be.
All this talk about this, and all of a sudden the season ends by, he hit the crossbar and fell short. Oh, where was Jake Moody? He had, he had a bigger leg.
You drafted a guy with a bigger leg. What are you doing? Oh, my God.
2020 hindsight. 2020 hindsight. But I will say this. Watching the Jets upset the Eagles put me in a much different frame of mind this morning. After that game, I was like, oh, man, what a terrible loss. But, in a way, I would rather the Niners lose a game in the regular season than get into the playoffs in an undefeated mode. I think when everybody's stroking you and telling you how great you are, that you're not really on your top edge that you need to win a championship.
I don't know.
I mean, I've never seen any Niner team. The 84 Niners were the best I ever saw. They went 15-1. They got robbed by the Steeler team. Sometimes adversity creates an edge. I mean, the Niners lost the 83 NFC Championship game on bad calls at RFK Stadium. Older Niner fans remember it fondly, or remember it well, I should say, not fondly. But that robbing in the NFC Championship game fueled their whole run in 84. The 85 Bears had more momentum than any team in the history of pro football, at least that I've been watching. They felt robbed and disrespected by getting shut out in the NFC Championship game the year before to the 49ers. So sometimes a loss can really fuel a team. I'd much rather have a loss or two in the regular season than some perfect record going into the playoffs and not experiencing and the fear of, oh my God, what if we lose now? We didn't lose this entire season. You see it in college hoop all the time. They enter the tournament and they never lost all year. Truth was nobody was in 15 points of them all year, so they weren't really battle tested. I'd rather see it. You learn about yourself. You dig a little deeper. You learn a lot you learn more from losses than you do from wins.
I think that team has had enough lessons from big losses and big moments to where if you look at it this way, I'll take an undefeated fucking team any day of the week. What are you kidding me, dude? I don't think you're learning anything from losses or feeling better or more motivated. These are not college kids feeling pressure. I would take an undefeated team and all my chances with greatness that you could possibly do.
What undefeated team have we ever seen? Patriots, and they lost in the Super Bowl.
Right. That was still a glorious season of football. I mean,
but I'm just saying, it's like, here's the thing. There's pressure in both routes.
Larry, the wins that the Patriots brought into that Super Bowl didn't beat them. The Giants.
No,
did.
I know, but I mean, I'm just saying that I'd rather have a team that goes 14 and 15-2 in this new 17 game schedule than the team that's perfect and is worried about remaining perfect. I'd rather a team be have some flaw, something.
I mean, to me, I don't care what the record is. You know what I want in the postseason? I want a healthy team. That's it. I want a healthy team. Because if you're good enough to be in the dance, there's chances are you're good enough to dance all the way to the last song. I mean, that's what we're seeing everywhere. You're a playoff team, you can win. You're a playoff team, you can win. It's happening dramatically all over baseball. It happens that way in basketball now. Like, seeding is irrelevant. Just get in, and if you're in, the randomness of any one day can have you in the Super Bowl, whether you're the best team or not. It's like the concept of a real underdog almost doesn't even exist in postseason play these days.
Michael Taylor says, I get what Larry's saying. Reminds me of the Warriors who broke the regular season wins that year in some ways. I didn't want to go 17-0 this year. Didn't work out for the Patriots either that year. I'm just saying that there's more pressure that goes with the perfect record. I think just acknowledging that you're beatable if things don't go your way takes a lot of the, I don't know. I mean, it's just different routes. It's okay. The moral advantages of losing have been greatly exaggerated. That's a famous saying. But I'm just saying they were going to lose. Look what it took to hand them a loss. I mean, look what it took. I mean, think about all the adversity from yesterday and all the things that went wrong and all the things that the Browns had in their favor, and still the Niners could have won that game. So yesterday doesn't bother me. Yesterday is not – let's just say this. The Niners in their Super Bowl year in 94 got beat 40-8 in a game I was at Candlestick for. The Eagles came in with Charlie Garner and slapped them around, okay? This was not that. This was a really good defense on a cold, mucky day and all kinds of issues injury-wise and bad calls, and Brock had a bad day and Ayuk had a bad day and no Greenlaw, and it's like this was and your kicker misses 2 field goals. There was tons of adversity and you still almost won. That's how good this Niner team is.
Yeah. No,
they're going to be a hard out.
There's no reason to change the X marks the spot of what the goal for this year is. The goal is win the Super Bowl. That hasn't changed a bit, not a smidgen. Now let's see what the injuries to Debo and Ayuk, Debo, McCaffrey, and any holdover, carryover effect of the ankle that had Williams leave the game for a little while. So there's some things to monitor. And for the very first time all year, injury concerns are present. There's no doubt. But
we got one more super chat here. Batman29 says, please read my super chat. Power or accuracy, which is better for a kicker? I'm taking accuracy.
Yeah.
I'm taking Ray Wersching and Robbie Gold and money from 42 on in over the guy who could make one from 60. But, it's dicey. You just don't know.
Living in a more offensive, aggressive world that football plays in now, I'd rather you roll the dice on a play on 4th and 3 than attempt a super long field goal anyway. Like, to me, that's the way modern football should be played.
I mean, it's like, let's talk about something where you have no net, like air traffic controllers. Would you rather have a really, really, a kid from Harvard with a 4.5 GPA who's considered the smartest kid in his class as your air traffic controller, or a guy who's been landing planes at LAX for 45 years?
Right.
Who do you, you're in the air. You can have either guy running your flight. Which one do you want? You want the guy who's never done it? I've interviewed Robbie Gould and I've interviewed Jake Moody, and they're both really nice guys. Robbie Gould's a man who's raised kids. He's played 18 years in the league. He's as knowledgeable about football as Shanahan. Jake Moody's a nice young guy. Reminds me of my son. If I got everything on the line, I would trust Robbie Gould over Jake Moody. And I love Jake Moody as a guy. I've interviewed him a couple times. He's a great kid, great perspective, solid kid, going to have a nice career. But seriously, if it's my life on the line, I'm taking Robbie Gould over Jake Moody. That's
Larry,
it.
This was a Browns.
I don't want to overthink it.
This was a Browns defense that held Joe Burrow to like 80 yards. Okay, they're good. They're really, really good. The Niners picked the wrong day to not be really, really good in their own right. Give Cleveland a lot of credit for making the game feel that way. That's the least amount of yards any Kyle Shanahan coach team has put up since he's become head coach of the 49ers. It was a bad day. Didn't work. It's over. It's over. Putting that game behind them as quickly as possible and getting ready. You got an extra day to prepare with the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football. Rest up. Another 18 plus hours could be exactly what either McCaffrey or Debo or Trent needs to keep on going. And if you don't have any three of those guys, it's going to be tough to win in Minnesota, as banged up and bad as Minnesota's been. But that's a game that the 49ers should still win because they are better. And I'm not worried. I'm not worried yet. The beginning of how you would worry about a football season flashed itself yesterday. But I'm not worried yet, and I don't think 49ers fans should be worried yet. And the goal is win the Super Bowl, and that goal has not been deviated from, not yet. So, Larry, I got to host a show. I know you got a big show with Brian Sabian and Ned Coletti coming up today. I think it's disappointing that Farhan is only interviewing yes men and yes women to just go along with his plans. I mean, the next manager of the San Francisco Giants should not come from the Gabe Kapler branch. It shouldn't, but it feels like a night.
It's interesting. Brian Sabian hired Dusty Baker, who didn't have experience but had a ton of playing experience. Then he hired Felipe Alou. Then he hired Bruce Bochy and won 3 titles. Ned Coletti hired Grady Little, who had done it before, and then Joe Torre. What do those guys have in common? A ton of experience.
Yeah.
So I kind of like the idea of experience. But then Jordy says, I believe in Stephen Vogt. They did interview Stephen Vogt. I did suggest over a year ago that Stephen Vogt, in my mind, would be a phenomenal manager. There's still going to be a learning curve.
Again,
but I like Stephen Vogt. I love Stephen Vogt. I think Stephen Vogt's a great communicator. I think he's respected. I think he's funny. I think he's got a great personality. I think he would be Stephen Vogt on the heels of Gabe Kapler, in my opinion, despite his lack of experience, would be a breath of fresh air. Michael Taylor says hire Ron Wotus. I'm not even convinced that Ron Wotus at this point wants to do the job, but Michael, I agree with you. That would be probably my choice right now based on the names that I've heard. But I'd be okay with Wotus. I'd be okay with Vogt.
Bochy's 7 wins away from a world championship, 3 wins away from a World Series, a shutout win for the Rangers in Houston.
Yep.
Bochy happens. This has been a really good and fun show. Ty Bud says, Damon, I need a Damon Bruce channel link. Can't find it. Go to Damon Bruce Plus. Damon Bruce Plus, hit subscribe. I ask Larry, you have a huge, awesome audience. I'd love your huge, awesome audience to lean into that subscribe button here. Make sure they don't miss a thing that you and I do together. We're going to be doing an awful lot together, and this was an awful lot of fun. We want to thank our sponsor, Palmetto Superfood, and walk on in there, say, I'm here for the buy one, get one Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger thing, and they will give you a buy one, get one free acai bowl. Get yourself into a Palmetto Superfood and just try it. That's all we're asking. It's delicious. It just happens to also be good for you. Don't hold that against it. It's delicious. That should be our only theme. Forget its nutritional value. Eat it. It's tasty. It's pretty much how we operate.
Absolutely. No, it's one of the, try it, you'll like it. That's all I'd say. That's all I would say. Some things you got to, oh God, do this and here are the advantages. No. Forget all that. Just try this. Go into a Palmetto Superfoods, and Charles, the owner, has opened a bunch of them around the Bay. Look it up. Go in there. Tell them that Damon and Larry sent you. Try it. Then come back. Tell us what you think. I know you're going to come back and be like, Krug, it was awesome. It was delicious. Take a picture and send it to us. Absolutely. Take a picture of yourself there. And Damon and I are going to be doing an appearance at a Palmetto Superfoods here in the weeks ahead. And we're fired up for it. It's a really great product. I would absolutely put my name on it, and thrilled to be associated with it. So
we're signing flat objects only. Just so you know.
We won't sign any babies, but no, it absolutely is phenomenal. And Charles is got a winner on his hands. There's no doubt about it. And by the way, our analytics person has just sent me that this stream, we're ahead of all other YouTube streamers and both radio stations today by over 300 viewers.
People have spoken.
People have spoken.
The people have spoken. Larry, always a pleasure, my man. Thank you so much. This whole thing is run from Larry's side of the technology, so great day producing. I love the Gibson video that we had earlier in the day. Larry, have a great interview with Ned and Brian a little bit later. Would you say 4 o'clock that bad boy goes live?
4 o'clock Pacific. I'm going to call Brian here as soon as we're off and talk about a few things. But, yep, absolutely. 4 o'clock today, reuniting two greats in Giants history, and excited to do it.
And if you want a little bit more 49er post game, come on over to the Plus, Damon Bruce Plus. I'm going live at 11 for my own show, and we'll see you over there. Larry, thank you so very much.
Everybody have a great Monday. Go Niners.